Wow, that was quite the wake-up call, wasn't it? Okay, let's see if my audio's working. It seems to be. Hello, viewers. My name is Sidney Winston. I'm an atheist activist out of Vancouver, Canada. Now, I have made a kind of a. I usually do try and make a little schedule, like what we're going to talk about today, what we're going to accomplish today. And I've done exactly the same thing today. The usual outcome, of course, is that I go off plan, forget the agenda. But today, I'm going to try and keep to some kind of an agenda, okay? So here are the four things that I want to cover today. I don't know how far in we'll get. Maybe we'll get to the first one. Maybe we won't even finish the first one. Maybe we'll get to the second. I don't know. We'll see. But firstly, I want to cover it's called The Making of a Narcissist. Professor Sam Vaknin, a noted psychology professor, will share that information with us, and specifically it's regarding Darth Dawkins. So what I'll do is I will finish off. We started in a previous video, in a previous segment or previous episode. I was playing a video where Darth Dawkins is ripping into. He's having a debate with Randolph Richardson of the Canadian Atheists. And Darth Dawkins was embarrassing himself. He was embarrassing the crowd. He was embarrassing Randolph. He was basically treating Randolph like a little child, and he's some kind of a big I don't know, someone of authority, a big authority figure. But he's not. He's just a rambunctious bloviator. So I'd started that, and we'd gotten almost 10 minutes into that, and I stopped for reasons that were appropriate at the time. Can't exactly remember, probably because I started it, 4 hours into a show or something. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just carry on with that. The sequence should be Darth Dawkins and Randolph Richardson. Darth Dawkins being very rude to Randolph Richardson. And then we should have a segment where Darth Dawkins goes and complains to his sycophants, his little teenage kids, how Randolph Richardson he just insults about how Randolph Richardson doesn't deserve to be who he is, where he is, etc., etc. To me, it's a projection of pure jealousy, of envy. So that is the first bit I want to cover, because then Sam Vaknin will explain how narcissists are made, and the idea is for you to experience the narcissistic environment for yourself through Darth Dawkins, and then we'll have the explanation of how narcissists are made. If we get through that, I doubt very much we will, but if we get through that, I would like to address Greg Bahnsen. Greg Bahnsen is the guy, the Christian apologist, I should say, who wrote the book on Christian apologetics. And Darth Dawkins learned all of his script from Greg Bahnsen, and we'll go through how he mimics that It's the Critique of Atheism by Greg Bonson, and we'll show you exactly how much of that Darth Dawkins has absorbed for himself. Also, the Critique of Atheism by Greg Bonson is something that I and anyone else who wishes to join in can critique as well, because I have a lot to say. There's a lot. There's a lot about what Greg Bonson says that is ludicrous, that is stupid, that is wrong, that is ignorant, that is um, just asserted without any evidence. There's a lot of that, and that will be in the room, the Google Meet room that I open up. Well, that's already open, but you guys can join. Anybody can join at any time. I'll start sticking the link up in a bit. Um, what else do I have to say? I don't think too much. So what I'm gonna do then? Oh, sorry, I have more to say. If we get through Greg Bonson, then we're gonna start tackling both the evil empire that controls Catholicism and Catholicism itself. It's unethical doctrine and dogma. So we look into that, and also we will get into more about Israel, more about Palestine, more about why. I found out something very interesting that I want to share with you when we get to it. I don't. I want to keep it under my hat for now. But I have something very interesting that I found out that I believe um, had a large had a large bearing, had a lot to do with the failure of the 1947 Nations Declaration for the Jewish Palestine and Arab Palestine within the borders of all of the land west of the Jordan River. I have a good theory on why that failed, and how come nobody else has brought this up as an issue is beyond me. So hopefully I have a scoop. It's like a 70, 70 something year old scoop. Okay, so like I said, we'll just continue with where um, Darth Dawkins was raging at Randolph. Okay, so we'll just take it away.
Necessitate referencing God.
There we go.
It would depend on what the fact is, but I suppose it could be possible. Wow, you're not getting this, Randolph. I have teenagers on Discord understanding this concept. God cannot coexist with a fact. Okay, Randolph. God here is defined as being the necessary precondition of all facts. Do you understand the definition? Yeah, that's how you're defining a male deity. Yes. Yeah. Did I say male? Yeah, you said God. That's the male. That's the male term for deity. So Randolph, can the God defined as such, okay, that you do not accept, can that God logically coexist with a temporal fact that does not necessitate referencing him? The answer is no, it can't. Yep, I agree with that. Good. Now, do you believe such a fact exists? From what I can see, that's how reality is without a deity. Okay, so then it necessarily and logically follows, if your belief is true, then God cannot exist in that world. Do you understand? My belief. I've told you I don't believe in deities. Okay, I didn't ask you about what you believed. I'm trying to explain.
God cannot be true. He's right. God cannot exist. This is the one thing that I do agree with Darth Dawkins on. God cannot exist. Let's continue.
Exist is an indirect denial and affirmation of the falsity of God. Do you understand that now?
You're stating that as my belief. I told you that I agree.
I didn't state that that was your belief. I said it necessarily and logically follows. Do you believe that there's one fact that does not necessitate referencing God?
See, this is what he always taught. This is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Just say.
Well, I believe that. It seems to me that that's the case, so I say, yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, so God as defined as the precondition of all facts could not logically coexist in that world, correct?
Yeah, with that concept as you just stated it, I agree with that. The logic seems to be correct.
Right. So then your position entails the indirect denial and the falsity of God.
So again, we're talking about some implicit things here. So
does your position
it's not
necessarily and logically
it is not a position that I hold actively.
Okay, no, listen to me. Does your position logically and necessarily entail the falsity of God when you affirm that there are temporal facts that don't necessitate referencing God?
That would be the implicit consequence, yeah.
We're a bunch of
okay, so your position entails the falsity of God, correct?
No.
No, it necessarily follows, Randolph. Randolph, I explain this to people of all ages every week, every month.
So he asked Randolph a question, and he asked Randolph a yes or no question. Randolph says no, and Darth says, no, that's not the right answer. No, Randolph, that's wrong.
Many times I understand that already.
Okay, so do you accept that your position entails the falsity of God?
Implicitly, yeah, not explicitly.
Okay, it makes no difference whether the denial of God is explicit or implicit. Either way, your position entails the falsity of God, that God does not exist. Okay, is that your position?
Only through implication. It is not an explicit view that I hold.
It doesn't have to be explicit.
So maybe
it doesn't have to be explicit, Randolph. Does your position entail the denial of God, Randolph?
No, explicitly no.
Randolph, you just contradicted yourself.
Randolph,
you
naughty boy.
I asked you if it was explicit. Does your position, by implication, entail the falsity of God?
No.
Okay, there's a question.
Yes, it does. You've now contradicted yourself. You just agreed to it 2 minutes ago. Yes, you did. If you affirm, Randolph, you're just filibustering. Randolph, you don't need to explain anything. You've just contradicted yourself.
Yes, I do.
Randolph,
because I think that you may not be understanding what I mean by implicit and explicit.
Just a minute, Darth, you have to give him time to explain. Randolph, just a minute. I know you have to go soon, like 5 more minutes, I guess, and
yeah. I need a moment to explain. I need a moment to. I need a moment to explain what I mean by implicit and explicit, because I suspect there may be a misunderstanding here.
It's fine. Darth, are you willing to be quiet to let him explain?
Any sense that God...
Oh my gosh, he's still talking.
Equivocation. I mean, stop the equivocation.
Nobody gets to talk. Okay, I'm going to mute you, JJ. Get out of the room.
Did you see that? The moderator muted Darth, said a few words, said something, went back to unmute Darth to tell him to stay muted, to shut up, and he was still talking even while muted.
Yeah, don't mute me again or I'll never be back here again. Randolph, it doesn't matter, okay? Your position entails the falsity of God in some sense. Is that correct?
I'm going to just take a moment to explain what I mean by implicit and explicit. I'm asking you a simple question.
Yeah,
you just asked me and I just answered.
Does your position entail, by implication, that God does not exist?
Yes, it does. And I want to explain what implicit and explicit means.
That's all I wanted to know. That's all I need to know. Your position entails the falsity of God. Now, can you please explain to me how it is that God does not exist?
After I explain what I mean by implicit and explicit, I will do that. Quick. So, okay. When it comes to not holding a belief in something, an explicit belief would be, or an explicit, holding that explicitly would mean that I have the capability of holding an opposite view to that, or a contradictory view to that, such as a theistic view that deities do exist, or even an anti-theistic one that deities specifically don't exist. An inanimate object, such as a rock, would be implicitly atheistic. Would be implicitly atheistic. I'm halfway through explaining. I'm almost done. I've given you a lot of time.
I asked you to be quick.
So an implicit saying that an inanimate object like a chair or a bucket of water is an atheist would be implicitly correct, because those things are not capable of holding any belief. Hang on, I'm not done.
Running the clock.
I'm not done. No. You will allow me to finish this, because I'm trying to give clear answers here.
Yeah, no, you're filibustering.
And so I'm not. I'm almost done. No, I'm almost done, and this is also for the benefit of the audience.
Okay,
So, implicitly, inanimate objects would be not believing in deities, but it's only implicit. It's not explicit.
Okay. You see how Darth Dawkins is just a really nasty individual as a person. He's got the personality of a Canada goose.
Filibustering.
No, I'm not. You have plenty of time.
Your position your affirmation that there is one or more facts that don't necessitate referencing God, does it logically and necessarily follow that God cannot coexist in that world?
God cannot exist in
again, as I told you, it's not a view that I hold, but
no, I didn't ask you if you hold that view. I said, does it logically and necessarily follow?
I agree conceptually, and so implicitly you could say that I hold that view.
Randolph,
I am trying to, but you're interrupting me.
No, you're not answering the question. No, I'm interrupting you because you're not answering the question. You're wasting.
You're not giving me time.
Randolph.
Oh, I think you don't like my answers because I'm being clear.
Randolph,
if Randolph's talking, he's answering the question. What do you mean? I'm interrupting you because you're not answering the question. This is how dumb Darth Dawkins is.
Follow from that God cannot exist in that world.
By implication, you asked, and I already answered that, yes.
That yes? Good. Then your position entails that God cannot exist.
That's not my position, because I don't hold the anti-theistic position explicitly.
You are completely in denial here. Do you affirm that there are facts that exist? Do you affirm that there are facts that exist without the necessity of referencing God as the precondition?
That seems to be the case to me, yes.
Okay, good. God cannot exist in a world like that.
Right!
Thank you for admitting that.
Okay, so good. Then you are agreeing then that when you affirm that there are temporal facts that don't necessitate God, God cannot exist, right?
Yeah, I told you I agree with that logic. That makes sense.
Good. Can you please explain to me then how is it that God does not exist?
Well, that's just
I don't hold that position.
Yes, you do. It necessarily follows from your claim that there are temporal facts that do not necessitate him. It necessarily follows, and you just agreed to it.
It's just going to follow from the fact that he doesn't believe in God, that God doesn't exist, Darth.
I told you by implication. You even asked me by implication, your words. And I'm here.
So your position entails the falsity of God. Now, I want to know, how is it that there is no God, Randolph? That's right. How is it that there's no God, Randolph?
I don't explicitly hold that position.
You don't have to explicitly hold it. It's entailed. Okay, the falsity of God is necessarily entailed in your claim that there are temporal facts that don't reference.
There's nothing I can do about that.
Okay, so Randolph, the bottom line is the affirmation. Would the moderators please mute these people? when you affirm that there's a temporal fact that does not reference God, then that equals the denial of God. Are we clear?
Only implicitly it does. We're clear partway there.
It doesn't matter. There's not this only, because an implicit and an explicit are both denials of God. So your position, it doesn't matter whether it's implicit or it doesn't matter whether it's implicit or explicit. No, it does not, Randolph. God cannot exist in your world where facts do not necessitate referencing him. Is that true, Randolph?
Through implication, yes, that's true.
Okay, good. So you are now admitting that your position entails the falsity of God. Okay, we're clear on that now. Now, I want to know, how is it that God does not exist?
I told you I don't hold that position explicitly.
Okay, Randolph, how is it that there is no God?
He starts to repeat himself over and over again.
So is this like these police interrogations where they ask people a question 3 times and then finally get a different answer?
Just like when we talked on MathPig, you were completely a deer in the headlights and were filibustering and was not addressing the issue. It's crystal clear right now. Your position entails the falsity of God. Now, as the head of Canadian atheists, okay, it doesn't make a difference.
But it does.
Now, I want to know how it is. No, it does not.
Yes,
it does not, Richard. It's a distinction without a difference. It makes no difference whether it's explicit or implicit. Randolph, there's your position. Okay, Randolph, you are making a distinction with no difference. It makes no difference that it is implicit versus explicit. They both entail that God cannot exist. Are we clear?
They both do entail that, yes.
Good. So your position is God cannot and does not exist.
That's my
right?
position too.
I don't hold that position explicitly.
Okay. It doesn't matter that you don't hold it explicitly. You see, now you're being deceptive and evasive. Your position entails
giving you direct. Hang on.
I want to know. Okay, you know what? You are a total waste of time. Okay.
Hey, Darth.
You sitting there? Shut up! Don't tell me what to do. Okay.
No, Darth. That's not gonna go here. This isn't reformation. If you want to engage with Randolph, you'll have to follow our rules. Okay. There is no 2 ways about it. So, if you don't want to follow our rules, you don't get to engage him.
Okay.
I'll just say I'm not offended or anything here, by the way. But thank you very much. I appreciate respect.
He left.
Okay. Bye.
I do appreciate the respect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you did well,
All right.
Randolph.
So, Crispy just said...
I apologize on behalf of Christians, Randolph.
Nobody has to.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
Idiot. Oh my goodness, I can't
Oh my God. This is the guy who's the head of Canadian Atheists. I mean, have you ever heard, and you're going to have to excuse me, folks, have you ever heard such a dumb fuck in your whole life?
What happened? What happened, man? What happened?
The guy is such an
oh
idiot.
My gosh.
Oh my goodness.
This guy is as dumb as a 5th grader. And he claims he's the head of American Atheists. I pointed out to him that his position entails the falsity of God. And he says only implicitly, not explicitly. And I said, it makes no difference. I said, either way, your position entails the falsity of God. Now I said, how is it that God does not exist? And he said, that's not a position I hold to.
What an idiot. Oh my, I can't how much of an idiot.
Listen,
Man,
there's one word, listen. There's one word that describes this guy. He is retarded. Okay?
Well, I guess we can see why he avoided you for 10 months.
You see, this is why it's a waste of time. He admitted.
That's really mean.
He admitted. Like, shut up.
He's really not.
Okay. Hey, Elliot, what are you drinking? The Kool-Aid? Either Randolph Richardson is profoundly stupid, or he's a completely disingenuous, deceitful person masquerading behind a polite Canadian. Okay? And I accept the latter. What's that?
He's neither. He's neither.
What?
I said He's neither. I don't think he's either of those things.
Okay,
That's
you're
a false dichotomy.
well, hold on a second. No, there's not a third option. Listen very carefully. Okay? I gave him a true dichotomy. He denied the true dichotomy. Then he had to backpedal and say it was a true dichotomy. Then when I said your position entails the falsity of God, he says not explicitly, and I said it doesn't matter. Your position still entails that God does not exist. Okay? He agreed that his position entails implicitly the falsity of God, but that he's not explicitly saying God does not exist, but he's saying God does not exist implicitly. Okay? Are we clear so far, Elliot?
I think we'll just agree to disagree.
Okay, you know what? You can fuck off, you little piece of garbage. Okay? That's what we call a scumbag troll. Okay? Look, how do you converse and debate with somebody who's deliberately stuck on stupid like Randolph Richardson? I mean, he was appallingly retarded, or if he's not retarded, he's just outright deceitful.
I think he was just in denial. He did not want to admit that he was, utterly a complete
he was being deceitful.
Yeah,
I explained to him, if you say something and by implication it denies God, it doesn't matter that you're not explicitly denying God. You're still denying God. This would hold up this would hold up in a court of law. Okay? And so I said, good. So your position, even though it is implicit rather than explicit, still entails the falsity of God. So I then said to him, after he agreed that his position implicitly entails the falsity of God, I said, how is it that God does not exist? He goes, that's not a position that I hold to. You can't make this up. And by the way, just to let you know, he's actually good friends with Neil the 604 Atheist, and they're building some stupid podcast studio together. Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I'm just frustrated because here I have somebody who puts himself forward. There's no third option. Either he's fundamentally stupid or he's deceitful. But you know what he is? He's deceitful. He couldn't be that dumb. Okay? Now, he categorically admitted, by implication, he is affirming the non-existence of God. Okay? He admitted this. So I then said to him, how is it that God doesn't exist? And he goes, that's not a position that I hold to. Now, how do you converse with somebody like that?
You can't. That's the answer. You cannot.
I mean, the level of deception is shocking. You see, he had to admit that by implication he was denying God. And then I said, okay, so your position entails the denial of God. He says, yes, implicitly. I said, good. How is it that God doesn't exist? And he goes, that's not a position I hold to.
Well, like I said, man, he avoided you for 10 months for a reason.
And this is, do you realize this guy says he's the head of some organization called Canadian Atheists? I can't even find out how many members there are at his website.
Maybe 4.
I would love to know. Now, do you realize how utterly infuriating it is to talk to a human being like this? You see, when I talk to people, I have a strong expectations that they're going to conduct themselves with a minimal of truthfulness. Okay? And I wasn't getting that. What I was getting was full-blown deceit. Oh, that's not a position I hold to. Of course you hold to it by implication. Oh, but it's not explicit. Yeah. It doesn't matter, Randolph, that it's explicit. If it's implicit, an explicit or an implicit position,
Yeah.
both equals the falsity of God. So your position is that there are temporal facts that don't reference God. Therefore, God cannot exist in that world. So I want to know, how is it that God doesn't exist? Oh, that's not a position I hold to. He repeatedly said this. You can't talk any further with this. He's pretending to be retarded.
Exactly.
Quick question.
And then people wonder why I get ticked off and I get angry with somebody like this. This is a guy who's on YouTube all the time. This is a guy who says, I'm Randolph Richardson, head and founder of Canadian Atheists. And I have teenagers who are more honest than this guy.
Mr. Darth, a quick question. Why did you leave philosophical checkmate? I wasn't there while you were in your room.
Because I was pissed I was getting muted because Randolph Richardson was overtly being deceptive and lying right to my face before everybody in the room.
Oh, you guys had like a mini debate?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He was lying right to my face and to everybody in the room. I'll give you a brief synopsis, okay? Yeah. I said to him, do you believe that it is not necessary to reference God as the necessary precondition of all facts? He said, yes. I said, then it necessarily follows from that God cannot exist, okay? I then went on to explain to him the logical entailment with a true dichotomy that God can only exist in a world where facts necessitate referencing him. If there is a single fact that does not necessitate referencing God, then God cannot logically exist in that world. Okay? Yeah. Then I said to him, it's a true dichotomy. And he said, no, it's not. Now, wait till you hear this. He said, there could be a world where some facts reference God and others don't. And I said, no, that world cannot exist.
Well, hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm not complaining about anything at this point.
I was enjoying the shit show.
Yeah, thanks for popping in. Have you had enough of the shit show? Is that what you're saying?
No, but it's just interesting to hear with different years, right?
Ah, yeah. But this is kind of more... I'm trying to more concentrate on the fact that Darth Dawkins, never mind about what he says. I don't, that's irrelevant at this point. What I'm concentrating on is the narcissism. Is the Darth Dawkins the narcissist? Why is he a narcissist? What made him a narcissist? What makes anyone a narcissist? And the next video is probably going to explain it. But this video was started, some time back, and I stopped it, and now I just picked up on it, so I can always pick up on it again. Not a big problem.
Yeah, it's interesting, watching it for all these years and watching the dynamics of it. It's bizarre.
What do you think of the behavior of this man? Never mind about... Tell me about tell me about him and his behavior as you perceive it.
So when you look at anybody who has to die on this hill over and over and over again, right? There's a dopamine rush that goes along with this, right? And if he does have literal NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, or any kind of, antisocial behavior, this is just filling the need, right? This is how he gets fed.
It's his supply.
Yeah, it's his supply, right?
If it wasn't for the people responding to him, he wouldn't be as crazy as he is, because he wouldn't have that supply.
Well, and but that's the nature of the being, right? That's the nature of people who are antisocial. That this is, we feed them, but that's the whole. We're moving through this whole internet culture now, where all of us are figuring out. Well, hopefully, we're figuring out who's being ruled by their dopamine, who's being ruled by all the misinformation and everything else, and like all you have to do is watch all the Karen videos. We love the shit show because we are now trained to be completely dependent on the dopamine. And what's great about it is what a great time it is to be a recovering addict for me, because it's crystal clear, right? What's sad is that people will get caught up in what is clearly addictive behavior and addiction, and it doesn't look like Skid Row addiction. So it's going to take them that much longer to figure out, sort themselves out, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I understand, but I have myself been caught up in a kind of crazy rage and just really saying things that I'm not thinking about.
Yeah, me too.
When I've been in an extreme anxiety, a position of anxiety, online, being challenged, and my reaction is, because I'm so anxious, I'm saying things that I'm not thinking about, and it's coming across as just disjointed. But the reason is that I'm anxious. Okay, so that's the cause, and addressing that cause of anxiety is what I have gone and done, and what I do, mostly successfully, but on a continuous basis. It's not something that is never with you. It's always there. So you're always conscious, and you always have to either medicate it properly with the help of a doctor, and you got to learn coping mechanisms and all this kind of stuff. I believe that my journey through this has been it's kind of successful, mostly 99%. But you take a guy like Darth Dawkins, who just lets it go on and on and on and on, day after day after day after day, over 10 years so far. I mean, he's creeping up on a dozen years of Darth Dawkins.
Yeah, I think the biggest mystery for me is like who is this guy? Like, how does he pay the bills? Like, what's behind the camera? I mean, some of us have been willing to show ourselves.
We know some.
Yeah, I thought I knew who it was at a certain point.
But we know some of how he pays his bills anyway. Like he doesn't have too many. He doesn't have to pay rent. He gets paid, I believe, for under the pretense of caring for his mother, his aged mother, which is why he lives in the basement there at no rent. And I believe he gets some kind of a monthly compensation for being the caregiver. Or even though the mother makes him lunch, and Gary, come on, your lunch is ready. She doesn't sound too disabled in terms of what I thought would be. But anyway, maybe, I don't know the full story, so I'm telling you what I know. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. I think that's where he gets his income from the government.
Yeah, I've always been a compassionate person, because I've always, worked on the ambulance or whatever. And so taking care of people's always been my get down. But, this whole life change type thing, I mean, I see people like that so different, right? And just, it's really very interesting. I mean, I kind of like watching it now from a completely different vantage point. When I first stumbled into this community, I was like, what is this? And of course, I was an atheist back then and didn't really even have any idea that the atheism had any kind of community. It's like in my family, it was like, yeah, that's what we are, but like we don't ever talk about this stuff. Like nobody ever debated God or no God, and this was a multi-generational atheist family. It's just like that was the craziest thing.
We never had that either, and I'm not sure if I grew up in an atheist family or not, but we certainly never, ever, ever, not once that I can ever remember, ever speak about God in a conversation with either my mother or my father or my sisters or any of my other siblings, or whether alone or together, never once.
Yeah, I still find it pretty interesting that people can get angry at what doesn't exist, right? Like the whole anger system,
yeah, I
or
think
what they say doesn't
I
exist,
think
right?
not being brought up, or not having a community of even discussing God, or the the whole philosophy behind why God, how God, who God, etc., etc. It just wasn't, like you say, on your end. It just wasn't a part of growing up. Now that now that I chronologically am not a child anymore, that I'm an adult. And talking about it is like I say, it's like you say anyway. It's new, it's a community, because I always thought, from the age of 9 years old, seriously, from the age of 9 years old, I thought I was the only person who was a hard, strong atheist, because I knew 100% for sure that there's oblivion after death. Death is your oblivion. Done.
Yeah.
Okay, so I knew that from 9 years old, and everybody else seemed to kind of accept the whatever everybody else says, which was God. So I never fit in. I never ever fit into any society ever, until I firstly discovered American atheists back in the 90s. And then I discovered atheist groups back in after 9/11.
Yep.
And then came Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
And that was not atheist at that point. That was just everybody. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, everybody was just in there. And so it was just arguing Muslim Israel, Muslim Christian, Jew, da da da. And then they were blocked, and then it was just North America, and or just Western countries, Australia, North America, Europe. And that's when we started forming, that's when the atheist community actually started forming or emerging, because there were so many different Christian communities, which they all failed. Do you remember Nate Cunningham?
Yep.
Yeah. Remember
Absolutely.
him? He was very strong. He was a very, very committed Christian, and he wanted to get YouTube he wanted to have his channel on YouTube so he could spread that Christianity.
Yeah.
Where is he now?
I have no idea. I haven't seen him in my church.
Well, you remember there was this guy. Hold on, you remember there was this guy who was also like a lunatic, like a really strong atheist. He wouldn't budge from his position. His name is Sidney Winston.
I do remember him.
You remember him?
Beautiful man. Beautiful man.
I cannot disagree.
Beautiful man. And then Nephilim. I look back fondly. I remember two things that stumbling on that whole microcosm was flat earthers, because that was right when flat earthers came out, right?
Yes.
And I remember there was like one day there was like 80 or 90,000 videos, and then like a few months later there was like 238,000 videos, and we'd been watching them all kind of explode, and then antinatalism, the antinatalism crew and Flyora from she was from Australia. Yeah, they were just boy, it was an interesting. It was my honest Alice in Wonderland moment, like just getting onto the computer, just being so lost at the time, because my PTSD was really bad. I'd lost 21 coworkers to suicide, over the 25 years. And, I was having panic attacks. I was sure that I was next. you know, it was really, really horrible. And so then, you know, work was a life, you know, and when you work on a paramedic ambulance, you really identify with who you are. Your whole identity is tied into the job that you do, which is, you know, mistake, by the way. And then when the mind and the body starts to go, because you can only see so much, you can only experience so much, then to lose that community, this is how important community is, right? And then you stumble onto something that's not a great community, or that's not healthy. It was a great community. I will never say it was not good, because obviously here I am today. So there had to be something good in it. But boy, that rabbit hole was deep. It was deep, my man. And I look back on it, and there are times when, gosh, if I could make a movie, right? Like, it would be so amazing just to even think about what happens and the reality behind all of it. And now you see, like, Kyle Rittenauer in his trial today, and how all has gone down. And I sit back and remember sitting in some of those hangouts with the Black Hebrew Israelites and some of the other people, and these guys coming in and out going, yeah, we set up these rallies, and they were back in the South somewhere. Yeah, we pitted both sides against each other. Like, and now that's all we see, right?
Talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, he was
crazy.
He was found not guilty on all charges.
Yeah.
Which from what I saw, okay, and again, it's my point of view. What I saw was a man defending himself from being attacked, and I would have called not guilty on all charges based just on what I saw.
Yeah, I kind of watched that from a distance. I've learned to emotionally detach from a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of that stuff, because it is so dangerous.
I watched it live. I watched it live,
yeah,
basically,
yeah.
and then I watched the replays and the analysis and everything.
That's a boy. That's a boy.
Yeah,
I don't care if he is a man, but that boy, when people talk about groomers, right, and people being groomed for this or that or whatever, like, you know, that's that whole bro coach culture.
Right.
That's all those big trucks and the all that stuff that's been brewing on the internet.
Maybe, but remember that
he's
also,
a young boy doing what other older men did.
All the gun charges, all the previous charges that were brought against him were dropped. Okay, everything, all the gun charges, you know, whatever.
Luckiest man in the world.
Everything. No, he's not the luckiest man. He's the smartest man, because he defended himself very well, from what I saw, and he deserves to be a free man, from what I saw.
Yeah, and I hear you from that point of view, but I want to take the argument back, or the discussion back, a little bit farther. Like, where has our country gone that a 17-year-old boy needs to be walking down the street with a semi-automatic or automatic rifle? Like, something has gone terribly wrong.
Listen
that
to
his
me,
childhood's
Kyle.
been robbed.
Listen to me, Kyle. Mommy and Daddy have to be at work today, and you have to look after your little brother and sister. So here's an AR-15, just in case you need it. And you know, we'll call you from work maybe later on this evening. Dinner's in the fridge. You just need to heat it up. Okay, son?
Right. Yep. Thanks, Dad. Because you know what? I know that kids raise themselves, and we're such good judges of character, and we make such good decisions, even when we have both parents around. This can't go wrong. This can't go wrong. Well, you know, that's what pisses me off about, you know, I'm kind of like this boomer apologist now, because I work with a lot of youth, especially youth, and, you know,
what's a youth?
On the internet.
Hold on a second.
Youths.
What is a youth? No, give me an age group.
Young folks. So
age range,
you know, Gen Z, millennials.
I don't understand that age
anything
range.
younger than us.
Numbers.
Yeah, anything younger than us.
Anything younger than us? Oh,
yep.
Well, that's everybody.
So, you know, I always get really offended when us boomers make the comment that, you know, they're the worst, they're the dumbest generations, and on and on. It's like, they didn't raise themselves. Take some fucking responsibility for the fact that feminism and toxic masculinity together combined and capitalism and everything else you want to put in there has decided that raising a child isn't really a big deal, right? That, women have to choose to be whatever they want to be, as opposed to, hey, I make life within my own body and I can raise little tiny humans to be stable fucking people and go out in the world and either do good or take out a crowd in a movie theater, right?
But that's the narrative. That was the rhetoric back in the 70s when
I remember.
when the women burned their bras and they were liberated.
Right.
So
So why do you think I went into the ambulance business? I was
I
like
understand
one of
that,
5
but
women.
what you're saying is one step away from burning your bra in the liberation movement, but you're saying it now 50 years later. It's crazy.
Well, yeah. But see, the women that were running those organizations back when I was a little girl, and I was in the Bay Area, so I remember all of that was going on. And I was raised by, a young mother who was a hippie. What I would have liked when I look back on it now as an old woman, I think, what we should have heard is something more balanced, right? Like, there's no shame in being a mother if that's what you want, because like children don't raise themselves. And now we see what's happened, right? And you watch this in like Korean women. They've been watching our feminism, unfold. And now a lot of Korean women are like, okay, I'm either going to be a mother or I'm going to be a businesswoman, but I can't do both effectively. And I kind of like that idea, like that you honor either job. Because I haven't lost my mind to the fact that I think women should be in the kitchen. Like that's not where I'm at. Like, live your best life.
Well, that would make my life easier because I wouldn't have to do all the cooking.
Yeah. Well, I can probably catch a plane at some point if I need to.
No, you don't want to be stuck in the kitchen.
No, not
but
at all.
Hold on a second. You're a chef, aren't you?
No, not at all.
Damn.
I
wouldn't consider myself a chef, but I could certainly cook.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when you look at everything that's going on, I mean, the arguments that are being had are just like dirty, rotten fistfights in the street. Like, there's no intelligent conversation going on. Not even within Dawkins' issue. Like, he thinks
for sure, Dawkins
they
is
think
a
that's
joke.
high intellect, but it's like when you watch academia talk about what's going on, it's a completely different conversation, right? And some of it might be out of touch, but some of it's not, right? These are some of the smartest people in the world.
I don't believe anyone thinks that Darth Dawkins is a high intellectual conversation room ever.
Oh, there are some people. So that it's the young ones, right?
Yes, the young.
The young ones, and that's what gets me. Is the young ones are watching.
But he's after the young ones, because the younger you get them, the more of a lifelong believer you'll make them, and that's what he's out to do.
That's a problem, right?
That
if he were,
look, he's dangerous.
So
he's dangerous.
Teaching people to critically think, whether it's like, I think one of the best things about my faith, right? And of course, like, I believe that I still would be considered a heretic amongst believers.
It doesn't matter with anybody. If you have faith,
I really don't care.
If you have faith saying Jesus Christ, then the only person that you should care about his or her feelings is Jesus Christ, and not anybody else in the whole world, right?
Well, yeah, and I don't really even think about you don't have to think about the feelings of a omnipotent being. Like, I don't ever worry about that. I don't ask God for anything. I don't try and outsmart God. I don't try and define God. I don't care what the reality of it is. But this way of life and the way I live it and the way I understand it is working really well for me. Did you your mileage may vary.
Yeah. Did you watch the video that I put up of Shani for Christ accusing me of breaking up your marriage with your husband?
No, but you told me about that. Which
I
is
found it.
Because it was.
I found it, and then I put it up.
My husband's alcoholism and my addiction and complex PTSD is what broke up that marriage. Like, it was two disaster humans.
No, she accused me of all sorts of things. No, she accused me of. It's hilarious. I want you to watch it, actually.
I will. I would love to watch it because that's hysterical.
Okay, it's not a very long one. You should watch it because we get accused of more than what I have mentioned, what I've let out. It's amazing.
Well, the great thing is, I mean, look, it is what it is, man. Like really, like I'm not. I don't think I would trade the last 10 years for anything, and it's been the most tragic 10 years of my life, with the exception of, the first 18 years of my life under my mother's, crazy rule. So, but
I found out something about myself, though.
what was that?
I found out that I am one of the biggest sluts on the internet, and I am trying to get. I intend to, or I attempt to put my penis into every woman I meet on the internet.
So they know about us then, right?
Well, you're a woman, right?
Well,
Damn
it
right
depends on
they
who you
know
ask.
about us.
It depends on who you
If-
ask, because
if it's- no,
that's been
if-
leveled at me before of my deep voice.
If it's true, what Shani says about me,
Yeah.
then yep, you're a victim.
Okay. Well, hey, there are worse things to be in the world than a slut, and ask me how I know. Yeah.
Worst thing.
Like, what are you gonna do? Like, own your shit, right? Whatever you are, face yourself. That's
No.
like
Hashtag be a slut.
hashtag face yourself.
Hashtag be a slut.
Step 4 of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous is take a fearless and moral inventory of yourself.
Hashtag
right?
don't be a slut. Hashtag be a
Wear
slut.
protection.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Personally, I would choose to be a slut if I had the option of it being realized, but it's just not me.
Being a slut is empty. It's really empty. Being sexually free is a whole different thing, right? Like, most people, I mean, the more you look at how far people go for an orgasm, you just go, wow, orgasms are pretty
believe me.
cool on their own. Like, why do we have to add all these extra people and toys and all of the rest of the stuff? Like, I think we're trying too hard.
I
think something else is
I live
missing.
in a neighborhood where I think that Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night is go and find a person to have an orgasm with at any cost night. Alcohol is involved.
As it is.
Yes, and what would they charge? They would charge probably cover fee and provide
Well, I was never that much of a slut, so I don't
music.
know. I don't know.
I know. I just see people going into these clubs all the weekend nights, and they're all tipsy and having a fun and laughing and dressed to attract. And I just feel
like good
so
work to
left
get it.
out. I feel so left out.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
No,
Like,
I
think
don't.
the
You know
world's
why?
kinda- yeah,
Because
I do.
I'm usually walking my dog, and I'm walking by. I know exactly what's going to happen to some of these people at the end of the night.
Oh.
And I get to just walk back home. Love it.
That's rough. That's rough. Yeah, it's an interesting life.
So
Yeah,
what
go
do
ahead.
you do for on your downtime
What's downtime?
when you're not out there changing the world and you're taking a break? Your Sabbath.
I'm on my Sabbath right now.
Ah,
Actually, I'm
good.
Yeah, this is my day off, and
really?
so it's my day off from one job, and then I do my coaching on my other day off. But I finally have carved off a decent time where I just can do what I want, and I swore I was never going to come back in these rooms, and I'm just so freaking happy that you guys even let me back in to just kill a room once in a while, because that was always such a what I do.
Everything's changed with these. The rooms are the same. They, the structure and the interface and whatnot. But this is what has changed. My room, and I did this yesterday with Wesley Curry II. I don't know if you caught that, but anyway.
I was listening.
Oh, you were good. Well, I let him say exactly what he had to say, and exactly what other people were preventing him from saying through one reason or another that he gave. You know, he wanted to. He was trying to preach from the pulpit, and they threw him out every time.
Mm-hmm.
So I let him say what he had to say from the pulpit, and the reason was not because I wanted to hear what he had to say. I wanted him to get it out.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, and I accomplished that. And I want
because
the same with you. Get it
yeah.
out.
Well, mine's really boring, right? Like
That's
really,
not the point.
really.
Again, that's not
Yeah.
the point. The point is how. I want to ask you at the end of it, how do you feel now that you've actually, you know, that you've cleared your mind of it. Not to clear
I've cleared
your
my
mind, but
cleared my cache.
You've shared your mind. You've shared it. Your burden is not only yours. It's everybody's now.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting because I was kind of afraid to come back in this area in this arena because I do work for quite a large religious organization. It's the only one I could work for because it's the only one that to me walks it like they talk it, right? And does good work for humanity.
Unitarian?
And no.
Damn.
Like I'm going to tell you.
Well, that's the only one I could think of.
Right. No, it's not even in that regard. But so and someday I'll tell you the whole story of how it kind of came about because it was really kind of very interesting.
This
right?
is your platform. What do we call you these days, by the way? Because I'm getting.
You call me what you want. You know I don't care.
I like sugar.
Okay.
I have a sweet tooth.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't matter because I know who I am finally, right? Like in the beginning, I used the alias as and most people did it, and I used to complain about it all the time about people hiding behind their avatar and blah blah blah. What a hypocrite I was because I wasn't even telling, I wasn't even telling my real name or anything. But I do see the value in that now, because in the wrong hands, your information is, it's kind of can be a weapon, just in some respects, but. I never was swayed by any of the arguments in the God or no God arena. Never, like as an atheist. And this came about in a way that was, so, I don't make it any, I tell the truth about everything. And like drug-induced psychosis was really real. Right. And at least whatever it was that I was experiencing. Now, you would have never known it. I never went out and acted out in public. I wasn't seeing things. I wasn't hearing things, but my mind was having an experience that was like, that these things can't be real. Like I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't I couldn't pinpoint it. So my brain was breaking in some aspect. Right. And a lot of drugs are meant to do that. So okay, so I was getting the result, but because of my mom had passed away, and because of the trauma of that, my mind started to fracture and kind of I don't know. I think
was happening. I think Jesus was slowly chiseling his way into you, and that experience that you have just related to me was one of what happens when Jesus chisels his spirit into you and saves you.
Oh, you're funny. So it was.
What do you mean I'm funny?
It felt like
it absolutely fits the explanation.
Right,
but
I know, but that's not where I was at. Right, like that was not. That wasn't the first thing.
I'd make a great pastor.
Yes, yeah, you would. God is good all the time. All the time.
Yeah,
God is good.
all the time.
So the funny thing is I fought it in the very beginning because I was having all of these experiences that seemed very odd. Like, I don't think this way. I don't feel this way. I don't observe these kind of patterns. What is going on? I just was really having an issue. And I knew I was having an issue, but I wasn't like sharing it publicly. Like I wasn't, right. I was withdrawing and I was staying home, and all my dope doing I did on my own, right? Like my best friend was my dealer, and I wouldn't even get high with her. Right, because I was so deep, dark in the closet about my addiction. I was just trying to.
Oh, I'm begging for a friend.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, she knew it was for me, but I could not I couldn't bring myself to do it in front of her. So in any event, so this keeps happening, and for the longest time, the craziness said, there is somebody out there who is trying to get you to believe in God. So they're creating an experience that takes you down to your knees to where you have nothing left and you have to cry out to God for help. Right? So that's what my brain was telling me. And I was resisting it. Well, bullshit. I'm not doing this. Like, you can't make me. Because as long as it felt man-made, right, I was unwilling to even entertain it. So then one could look at it now and go, you know, like, how would God do it in a modern day? I mean, if you were to just suspend your belief or non-belief, right, and you were to paint that picture of how would an omnipotent, whatever it is, right, find a way into your heart to pull you out of your madness, if that were even possible, right? And again, I'm not saying to you that I know what the fuck has happened to me, whether it has or hasn't. I can only tell you the experience and what I was thinking at the time, right? People will decide. I know people will twist the words and twist what I say, and that's fine.
Don't be too sure about that.
Right? Like, at this point, I don't really care.
Yeah.
So these things started to happen, and I knew something was wrong. So of course, took myself to the psychiatric hospital, right? Checked myself in.
As we do.
Never was restrained, or nobody tied me down. This wasn't One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. As a matter of fact, I sat in there going, I'm not like these people. Like, the weird things were happening to me, but I wasn't crying out or screaming or any of that stuff, but some weird shit was happening in my head, right? And so then I remember the day, because I did that 3 times, right? I thought I could go back out and, do whatever, but I had so much money because my mom had passed away and left me all that money, which was, best thing in the world. Give somebody with an addiction all kinds of money, and
Oh, you had the addiction before that?
Well, yeah, but that was because of fibromyalgia, and they had me on opiates, and so then I needed more and more and more, and because I didn't know I was ADHD, so I was always fighting my body. Everything I did backwards, my trauma as a child, my mom was like, why can't you do things like other people? All that stuff, blah, blah, blah.
What a bitch.
So I find it, yeah, so of course they give me opiates, and I have this paradoxical effect, like meth calms me down, and opiates like keep me awake, like I never snap my dog or
so you are one of these reptilian non-humans.
Yep, and I have an Rh negative blood, which is true. I have O negative blood with an Rh factor, and so apparently I'm something, I don't know. The internets tell me
you're the only Denisovan in North America.
Is that true? Okay.
It seems to be.
I'll make myself a patch and stick it on my jacket. So, life goes on and my head starts to clear up, because post-acute withdrawal syndrome lasts about 18 months as you're coming down off of drugs. And, went to rehab, stayed in sober living for like 21 months, which is much longer than most people stay in sober living. But I was so frightened and so afraid, like something was going on. I could not get it to stop. I couldn't get my brain to stop reacting to these things. And so it seemed like everything had a purpose, right? Everything had a purpose. I was personalizing everything. Why is that happening? That's not real, or whatever. It seemed like my life was an RPG, right? And that there were NPCs everywhere, and it just was very odd. So I just continued to kind of take it all in stride and not say many things to many people, because I knew that it sounded crazy, and I was working on fixing myself. So just continued. And then I got a job in mental health as a peer support specialist. I started working down at the homeless shelter, or at the homeless camp, actually. And, when you grow up upper middle class, privileged, then you have all this money, and then everything is ripped. Like, imagine, the story of Job, right?
Do I know the story of Job? Is he the guy that got eaten by the whale?
No, that's Jonah.
Okay.
So
Job. I know my Bible. Okay.
Okay.
Job. Job was a prophet.
So,
Am I right so far?
so Job was a. I'm going to read to you what it says. In there. It
I
says,
don't
Job was a
know.
wealthy man.
I don't know
Listen,
fuck all about Job.
right. So Job is a wealthy man living in a land called Uz, with a large family and extensive flocks. God boasts to Satan about Job's goodness, but Satan argues that Job is only good because God has blessed him with God has blessed him abundantly. Satan challenges God that if given permission to punish man, God or Job will turn and curse God. So I didn't find out about this story till probably like 3 months ago, but it was like that was kind of like the situation that this is what it felt like, right? Like, because I lost everything, Sidney, and still have not recovered a whole lot, and that includes my family and my grandchildren, right? And so, when 2 children abandon you, you're like, wow. Like, I never spanked these children. I never kept them from their dads. They always, I wasn't an addict when they were children, right? They were grown adults by the time I was an addict. So
maybe they abandoned you because of shame.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Well, so my one son, my son-in-law is a Satanist, and he's married to my daughter.
Hey,
and so,
I like
he's
him
also
already.
he's also a drug addict, right? So he doesn't want.
I'm not so sure I like him anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't want a clean believer as a mother-in-law. All the more reason. He's very manipulative and a lot of rage, a lot of anger, right?
What?
So that's fine.
He doesn't want a clean believer.
Right.
But hold on a second.
Hold
on a second. That's very, very, very. I don't know. What's it? Patriarchal. He wants a woman to be what he wants her to be. Basically. Is this?
Well, I don't know. That's what my pain. That's what my pain and my shame tells me. Is why would your daughter not? The last thing I heard from her was, "I love you, Mom. I just can't have a relationship with you right now." And that's really difficult to hear, especially when, like maybe I wasn't the greatest mother, but like,
what? If I heard that from my daughter, who I've never spanked ever, and exactly what you said you did, we've always had good communication, and we've always, I've said I love her like a zillion million times, and she back to me. If she ever said to me that she doesn't want to have a relationship with her, I'd fucking track her down and start spanking her.
Yeah, that's what my friend says to me. She goes, "Carly, your kids are spoiled," and I just didn't want to believe that, right? I didn't want to believe that my children were so either broken or spoiled that they would turn their back on their mom. When I've never gone crazy before, I always provided for them. I never made them choose where they needed to go, as far as holidays or whatever. Yeah, I was married 4 times. Yes, I was a disaster. Was I emotional? Absolutely, right? I was all of those things, but I kept away. I stayed at work because that's where I did the best, right? My relationships were bad. Life was bad for me. And, but I could be a rescuer, right? That was my identity. I did that job well. So I probably didn't bond with my children as well as I should have. And this is what happens, right? But it still was super painful. That right there really broke me more than anything. So I'm having this Job experience, and I'm like, am I supposed to call out to God? I'm still resisting this. Like, somebody is manipulating my life. This is, the paranoia is like, somebody's manipulating my life and feeding my kids bad information about me. And this is keeping them, and they're going to wreck me until I fall to my knees and either curse God or cry out to him. It's a very odd mental illness, I have to tell you.
God is a mental illness. I agree. It's an odd one.
I don't know that that's true, but I certainly see how. I asked my pastor the other day. I said, I don't quite understand how these things sit in both worlds, because some of the girls that I take care of are like clearly unhinged. Right. And religious ideations are real, right? Especially with people who live with schizophrenia and other cognitive mental illnesses. And like, I asked her, how do you know the difference? She goes, you don't. And I go, well, then how do you answer these people? And she goes, you just do it with love. You do what Jesus would do.
How do you, with all the love that God is, how do you reconcile the omnipresent godly love with the omnipresent uh, uh, barbaric and callous evil that is in your peripheral vision, because it's right out there. It's way more. There's a lot more evil and human to human, zero compassion and abuse and killing, etc., than there is love. So
Yeah.
how do you take the fact that you see Jesus and God as all loving, and it's like enveloping you, yet out there's Darth Dawkins, the same Jesus, and he's wrecking other people's lives, and he's malevolent. He's a source of evil.
So I hear that 100%, and it's such a good question. That's where the conversations really need to be had. But like my experience is my experience, right? Like I can't push that on anybody else, and I don't. And that's why I have to ask my pastor, like, how do I talk to people about these things? Because I do have an obligation to, uphold those teachings. And I found a way to do it authentically in a way that works for me. And I've never denied that, look, I don't know a whole lot about this. I will do my very best, right? But I'm still learning. So I ask questions. I get to ask questions. And here's one thing: I don't anthropomorphize God, right? So I don't even try to figure out what God is.
Then why call him Jesus?
How it works.
Then why
No.
call
So
him
I'll
Jesus?
get there.
Okay.
So so something rules this universe, and whether it's energy or whatever it is, something rules this universe, and we're all kind of made up of that very same thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just listen to people like, what's his name, the physicist, what's his name? Anyways, all the different things that we're made up, that are the primary elements of the universe that we're made up of, right? So, and here we are, in this little area, and what are the chances of us being born, and it's something, right? I don't care what it is, and I have no need to argue about what it is, but it's something. And I'd like to think that we're all made up of something special, that we are connected to each other in some sort of way, right? Whatever that is, I don't care. So then you take a look at all the myths and the way language and communication has come down throughout the world. If we accept things like the telephone game, and that things get messed up, if we accept that people lie, if we accept that people deceive, if we accept that people get things wrong just on accident, then we have to accept that there's going to be mistakes everywhere, right? And so when I look at the stories that have made it to us in modern day, and you look at them as archetypes, and you see what the archetype of Jesus was, right? And that going out into the world, like John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave us his only begotten son, and which I'm not a big fan of, because I think that just reeks of guilt, right? Like a God loved you so much that here's my flesh and blood, and I'm gonna crucify. I'm gonna let you watch him crucify, and they're going to tell the story for the next 2,000 years, and people are going to fight about it. So, like, focusing on that's kind of, I'm still digesting that whole thing. But if you look at it as a metaphor, when we become adults, when we become aware, when we go out into the world, because all of us have a mother, right? Or a father, and so we all have that.
That's not necessarily a positive statement.
Right. I'm not saying it's positive or negative, but the fact that we all go out into the world and we get literally crucified, right? And that in order for any change to happen, you must die to self. Things in you have to die.
I've never been literally crucified.
Well, no, metaphorically.
You said literally.
Did I say literally? Sorry,
yeah.
My bad. I misspoke. So, but it's that metaphoric, like, the world is going to treat you bad. Women are going to treat men bad. Men are going to treat women bad. Countries are going to treat their people bad. People are metaphorically crucified every day. And if you want to make a change, and we can torture ourselves, right? We can torture ourselves with our own beliefs and how we feel about ourselves and the trauma that was done to us as children. And if you want change, if you want to be something different or be somebody different, certain things have to die, and you literally have to be reborn, right? So if I look at it that way and I go, okay, so is this the Bible's written during a time when people were linguistically less sophisticated, right? We've been telling stories from the time that there were cave paintings to song to hula, the haka, whatever. Just every religious text, Mesopotamian myths, all of this stuff. It's all communication. It's all what we've handed down. We know that tons of it have been lost. Tons of information has been lost. We know some of it's being hidden. There's all these things, right? Just take a look around you. So then when it comes down to it, when I was in the room here, was still when I was in this community, and there was a trans woman who was just owning it one night. She knew more about religion than I'd heard. I mean, I thought she spoke quite eloquently, and she was, I really liked listening to her. And she was the one that came up with John 14:12, or she brought out John 14:12, which is basically Jesus saying to everybody, look, I'm going home to the Father, right? And they're all being so selfish, going, well, what are we going to do without you? Like, I just told you I was going to die. I just told you I'm going to be crucified and die, and you're concerned with yourself, which tells me a whole story about human nature, right? Like, that just goes to show you that humans are innately selfish, and self-centered. And there's like, what are we going to do without you? And he goes, look, I say unto you, whoever believes in my Father will do these people. I'm going to paraphrase because I always get it wrong. Other men will do even greater things than I have done, right? And I sat back, I went, and that stuck with me. Like, I didn't know anything about Bible and verse back then, and I still don't really, because none of it really, all the rest of that bullshit I don't care about. Like, it's just arguing points, right, that are unverifiable. So I don't waste my time on it. I do listen to the story, and I try to find the lesson in it, but I don't always hear it. Like, I don't always hear the lesson, but if it's something that's applied to me, sometimes I do. So then I look at it and I went, wait a minute. Did Jesus just tell people that we're capable of doing even greater things than he's done? Because last time I heard, Jesus was the only perfect one and nobody's Jesus. Who do you think you are, Jesus Christ? All the stuff that we use, as pejoratives to people, and, oh, nobody will be that perfect. But yet in this one little verse, Jesus says that other men will be capable of even greater things. And I went, okay, challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. Can we be good to each other? Can we take the reins? Like, I don't fear Satan. Like, when I came here, they were like, Satan's a liar. It's like, yeah, you know what? I don't have time for a lesser angel that has to ask God in your stories, has to ask God for permission to do anything. Like, that just seems like that's a way to get simple people to understand why bad things happen, right? Because bad shit happens, and I get that. But it's just like anything else. I can't control anybody else or anything, but what I can control is me. How I react, how I fix myself, how I heal myself, how I connect with my higher power as I understand him, right? I say him as a common language. I don't really think it has any kind of gender, obviously. But if every time I want to talk about this, I have to go, okay, now I don't think God is really an old man sitting up in the stars in the sky, and I don't think like, I can't do that. I ain't got time for that. Like, it's just my belief. It's the God as I understand him.
Right.
That's it.
So
like,
you say you
take it or leave it.
You do counseling, right?
I do now.
Because I need some counseling.
Okay. How can I help you?
Well, I'm dealing with somebody who has undiagnosed mental issues. Okay.
Okay.
When I was diagnosed with my mood disorder, I shared it right away with my daughter, and we went, she was with me all the way through. She knew what I was doing, the therapy, the medication. She wanted to know what it was like. She was very interested. So I had a lot of support there. But now I'm dealing with somebody with I believe is an undiagnosed mental illness condition, and I don't know how to, how to handle the accusations and all the slander, etc., etc. The reason I'm asking you this and mentioning is because she's in the side chat right now, and she goes by the name of Cryptomeria Star. Cryptomeria Star in the so if you read all the accusations going up in the chat,
you know me, I never read that stuff.
I
never do. I never do. It's incidental to me.
All right,
it doesn't matter.
So she can come in and talk. But anyway, I just want to mention something about what I learned in Discord about chat.
Yes,
the side chat. Okay, now in Discord, you've got the voice rooms, and then you got.
I'm on Discord.
Okay, you got the voice rooms, and you've got the chat that goes with it. And in Discord, a lot of the time, the chat is a thing of its own, and the voice talk is a thing of its own. There's very little connection between the two because people in the voice talk are talking amongst themselves, and people in the text chat rooms attached to the voice chat. They're also talking amongst themselves. It's two separate conversations, and I'd like to treat this hangout as the same way. Is that we're having a conversation, and whatever's happening in the text is a whole different conversation that I'm not involved with. So, but I happen to see a lot of venom coming through from this person today.
Okay. So maybe she's angry. Maybe she's angry. Maybe
she's
maybe
angry.
she should hear.
I have. She has accused me of things which simply aren't true, and and she's made it public. So
okay,
how do
all
I
right.
deal with that?
So, so what people think of us is none of our business. That's the first thing, right? That is the first thing. Because people are allowed to have their opinions and feelings.
I know, but
that's the truth.
I agree. I agree there. Okay.
Right. So then, it's your channel, right?
Right.
And you get to have people in this channel that you want, right? So you're either a willing participant, or you're not. And we're not even talking about whether this person is right or wrong or indifferent, because it would be really unfair of me to. First of all, I'm not quite comfortable. The fact that she's out there, she can hear me at least, and she can respond. But it would be bad form to have a conversation about somebody who's not present, right? It's called triangulation. It's a form of triangulation.
I'm not talking about. I am talking about someone in particular, but the situation is very general. Somebody who is in denial about a mental disorder, and I don't know how to handle that because her denial comes with all sorts of insults and personal attacks and assertions and claims and this, that, and the other, which paint me in a very negative light, which is unjustified.
So you're not going to like this answer, and I love you.
Oh, okay. Let me sit down.
Okay.
And let me just pour myself a shot of scotch, a cup of some of the ice.
It's not that bad.
Okay, come on, just kidding.
So my first question that I would ask is, why are we discussing other people's mental illness or perceived mental illness in a public forum? That's my first question.
Because I'm asking you for counseling, and the only time I ever mention you ever come across you is right here.
I understand that. I'm not talking about this time because I understand the purpose of this, but so that I guess I need more context of the story, right? Like it's
okay. Well,
I'm missing some details.
I can give you a 30-second quick because something erupted because of a show that I did yesterday. Okay, this is. Let me give you a show. Some time back, or not sometime back, but back in probably the summertime or the springtime. This person was in a public hangout, with with somebody who was a kind of a typical Catholic, with a Catholic mindset, and made her feel sort of like he mocked the fact that she was a woman and made fun of her, and made her feel very creepy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell that she was creeped out. So I had an interview with her live, where we played some of that video, and she explained how she was feeling when she was with that guy. And I would stop and ask her, "How do you feel right now?" That sort of thing. And essentially, she felt very uncomfortable. She actually just left because she felt so uncomfortable. So we spoke about that. Yesterday, I played that interaction where we spoke about how she felt so kind of demeaned and just didn't feel dirty, felt violated, all that kind of stuff. And she's not very angry at me because apparently she's made up with this guy who made her feel dirty and violated and demeaned and everything. So I don't understand how I've done something that is, I thought, very, very pro-woman in pointing out how women feel when guys are just trying to be, ha guys, and and make fun and make misogynistic statements, and just aren't very nice, aren't very respectful to women. And now I'm getting heat for it. I just don't understand. This is why I say that there's a mental illness issue that and I don't want to, again, I don't want to bring it into the public eye, but I want to know, how would I deal with this? Should I just ignore this person, or what?
Well, I don't think ignoring anybody who seems to be in pain or upset about a situation is ever a good idea. Like, I have so many questions and ideas, right? Like, first of all, there's some truths about this, that we're all here voluntarily, right? That is the truth, right? So if we acknowledge it, each and every one of us has to accept the fact that when we walk our ass into this arena to make open comments, to participate in this kind of stuff, is that we also have to accept the downside of it, right? And if you're going to be a big enough boy or girl to ask or to engage, you must have be a big enough boy or girl, or non-binary, whatever, to handle what comes along. Now, can you be hurt? Absolutely, you can be hurt, right? But depending on anybody's, because I'm not going to point this person out because I don't know her, and it certainly sounds like she's been attacked enough. You've been attacked. Everybody's been attacked, and that's not fixing the situation, right? Like it. And I told you this is going to be very boring, but the fact of it is, as long as we continue to make our mental illness or our communication issues or our conflicts, whichever applies, a public spectacle, this will continue to happen.
You know what would be very constructive? What? Did you realize that when you started speaking to make your point, you had the full time, as much as you wanted, to actually complete your point and get out your point fully and totally? Did you notice that I just let that happen?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when each and every time I've had been in the same situation with this person, usually privately, and we're having a conversation, this never happens. It can never be on a level, sort of respectful playing field, because it seems that when I'm talking, and for some reason or other, it's being misconstrued by this person. It gets something gets thrown back at me, and the words get switched around. Everything gets thrown back at me, and an incredible change in mood to like a flash anger always spoils the conversation. So successful communication, I don't think, has ever been achieved.
Well, let's be fair. Successful communication is seldomly exhibited in these rooms. Not yours, not just yours, but in all of them. We just heard when I came into this room, Darth and all the rest. I mean, good communication doesn't exist in these rooms, right? So this is what I'm talking about. How do we teach the children or the young people or the impressionable people, even older adults that are impressionable, or heaven forbid, somebody who's just stumbled on the internet because they're having a hard time in their life, like I did, and not knowing the rabbit hole that they fell down, because you're going to sink or swim.
It's all very well to have the time uninterrupted to talk, but you've got to remember two things. Firstly, is even if you have the room, the floor uninterrupted to speak, that doesn't mean that anybody's listening. It can mean that somebody is listening, but it doesn't mean but it doesn't mean that everybody's listening. It just means that some people may be listening. Sure. But if you have a situation where you get half your thought out or half your sentence out, and somebody interrupts you, or somebody starts making accusations, and it gets very confusing. That's where, number two, 100% of the time, nobody knows what you're talking about. Nobody gets it because nobody can. And that's the situation I find myself in.
So people come into conversations usually with an agenda, right?
Okay.
We usually have a reason that we're going to have a conversation. We may not know it in the beginning, but human interaction always has an agenda. Do I want to buy something from you? Do I want to communicate something to you? Even micro expressions, everything, right? This is our way of communicating. And heaven help us. I did say heaven help us. Sorry.
That's okay.
Heaven help
it's just
us.
an expression.
I know. If we have been given poor examples of how to communicate, or heaven help us if we are in pain and we've been injured, right? And this is where we find ourselves. Not all of us know how to defend ourselves. Not all of us know how to have a decent argument. Not all of us know how to bring our point down, because we all have blind spots in our own learning and our own issues, right? So we all do.
I agree,
right?
but that's not the point. What I'm trying to say, I agree. Not all of us know how this, know how that, but all of us have the capacity for respect to let the other person, even if he's struggling to get a point out, give him the time to get it out. It's like, when somebody's up there giving a speech in front of a crowd, and they start to stumble and whatever, everybody goes silent and they wait. This is what should happen in these hangouts. Instead of everybody jumping at the same time, screaming and shouting, it's like, when a guy with a knife, I've seen this. There's a guy with a knife, and he's surrounded by 8 cops. Okay, pointing a gun. All 8 of them are shouting, screaming at him something. Put the knife down, get down, do this, do that, and that makes it worse. If one cop was giving him directions, and trying to sort of keep a level head about him, and nobody else said anything, there'd probably be a lot less cop shootings. But with all of them screaming at him, "Put your gun down!" And this is what happens. And I've seen it 100 times.
Absolutely. Well, but so here's the thing: if dopamine is the god of the internet, which it is, right? Everything is designed on the internet for the dopaminergic reaction in the brain, right? Silicon Valley will tell you that. It's no secret. This is how it's done. So when people come into this area and they get their little dopamine feed, as even myself, right? when you come in and somebody hits a nerve, right? Somebody stumbles across one of your samskars or your trauma,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the ego pops up because your intellect says, oh, I think I should have a counter argument. But your ego says, oh no, your ego jumps in like the Kool-Aid man. Oh yeah, I'm here, right? And says, I got this. This looks like the time my dad did, my mom did, my mate did, whatever, right? And I'm taking over, right? So the intellect, it pushes the intellect out of the way, and that's it. It's all done. So when people get triggered in these hangouts, right? It's like, first of all, why are you here? Like, what is your purpose for being here? Do you want to listen to conversation? Do you want to you want to run your mouth in chat? Do you want to be helpful in chat? Do you want to, you know, find community and get to know people? You know, so what do you bring to the table, or what are you expecting? So expectations are a big deal. What is your expectation? Because expectations lead to resentments lead to either relapse if you're an addict or chaos if you're not. And so you have to ask yourself, what's your why about why you're here? Like, what do you want? And when somebody offends you, what skills do you have in your toolkit to handle your shit?
Well, just rely on the 11 Satanic Rules of the Earth, surely.
Yeah, those. Yeah. But when you look at those, I'm not saying yes in agreement. I'm saying yes in acknowledgement. And not because I would be afraid of them, because I did read. I know them because, you know, my daughter's married to one. And I looked at them, I went, oh, these are so tame. But that was Anton LaVey, right? This man was all about. He was all about theater and everything. So yeah,
so
write
what?
anything.
What do you think religion is?
Well,
if not
regardless,
theater,
I don't like religion. I don't like religion, but I am having a spiritual relationship with something in this universe. What it is feels akin to some of the stories.
You need to tell me. Okay, here's a question I have for you. It's kind of one of those fine line questions, I think.
Yep.
There was a time when you and your family were atheists, right?
Yep.
And spirituality was never part of the discussion. Am I correct?
Never.
Okay.
And not even out of disgust, not even out of mockery.
So you didn't even know that a spiritual side philosophically existed?
No, I did. I used to go to church with my friend across the street.
You did know that a spiritual side existed. Oh, okay. So
yeah, but it
when did the spiritual side that you couldn't connect with as an atheist, when did that spiritual side actually touch you? Because I can't imagine what a spiritual side is, so I can't imagine, I can't conceive of any other way to explain it to you, how you connect to it. So
yeah, so I'll be the first one.
I'll
be the first one to tell you.
Awkward question, but
it's not awkward for me, because I'm willing to be honest about it, right? Like, I have no idea if this is a construct of my fractured mind. I have no idea. I have no way to confirm nor deny that, right? But what I can tell you is that I find meaning in living a life that I act as if God exists, right? I act as if the teachings of Jesus Christ, or the red letters in the Bible, are the right way, or are a good way to love people, right? That's about the extent. That's as far as I can go. Like I couldn't do all of the rest of this. I mean, like, I listen to all this garbage, you know, that goes on in this debate. It's like, none of it's important, right? None of it's important. Like, take this debate out to the homeless shelter, people who are suffering, the people that are living literally in doorways, that have to shit in their pants, that cannot go into public places to even apply for benefits because they've been on the streets for so long that they're out of their mind and they don't even know how to negotiate life anymore. Tell them about your solipsism. Tell them about your epistemology, blah, 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 fuckery, right? Like, it doesn't matter. When you talk about human suffering, people who are untreated mental illness, right? People who suffer, who sit in their house and haven't been out of their house for years, right? People who are so anxious that they're not, able to make connections with other human beings. And we're going to argue about whether they had a census done in Bethlehem or Israel or wherever like, who cares? That's not what it's about. That's not what love is about. That's not what caring for other human beings is about. And that pissing match that everybody else continues to have is a pissing match for dominance, right? Because if God exists in any way that would be familiar to any of us, do you think God would say there's a way that I'm going to let one of you be able to prove who I am and what the secrets of the universe are? It wouldn't be a God. It wouldn't be a God. It wouldn't be mystical or whatever it actually is, if it was to be known. But people are so freaked out about dying or about being alone and what's on the other side, that we waste our entire lives on fantasy, on fighting in rooms like this. It's like, get out and help your fellow man. I'll tell you, that's where you'll find God. It's when you can give that. Yeah.
Most people that I've met here in Canada, they don't really worry about what's happening. They know that the end is the end, and we live our lives, and just like you said, like you're actually saying, you're describing Canadians, basically.
Well, yeah, there's lots of people that are like that, but see, they don't get involved in these conversations. You have to remember, this is a very small part of the world. There's plenty of people that don't even know that this part of the world exists.
What is with America? God, it's so stupid.
I don't know. I'm trying to defect. I really am. I'm trying to defect. I'm hoping South Korea takes me, or maybe a nice young Korean Canadian man. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we only accept atheists because Canada's an atheist country, above all. So to come in as a non-atheist, I'm not too sure.
If I promise not to preach,
I'm not too sure if you'd pass the immigration exam at the border.
Well, I don't know how then my company is in Canada if.
You have to you have to swear you have to swear. You have to affirm that you are a humanist and
which I am.
Conform to humanist principles only.
So I am, and not only.
You said that, you're out.
All right.
Luckily,
if that's what it means, so I can't give up my freedom.
I'm a scout. I'm a scout for the immigration board, by the way.
Yeah, that's all right. You do that. So if I don't belong, I don't belong, Sidney. It's okay. I've got the rest of the world that I can go to.
Okay. Yes.
Malaysia will.
So tell me about this young. What did you say? Canadian?
Yeah.
This Korean man in
Canada.
Canada.
Yeah.
So for you, it's really all about the sex.
No, I don't even know if I have a vagina anymore. It's like
young Korean man.
So long.
Okay, then why not just Sidney Winston in Canada?
The truth of the matter is I'm not there yet. Like, that part of me is super broken. So it doesn't matter whether you're Korean or Canadian or South African or whatever, right? Like, it doesn't matter.
I'm taking myself out of the running because I cannot compete against young South Koreans.
Yeah, but I couldn't bag a young South Korean. I couldn't bag a young South Korean anyways, because no Korean mother worth her weight in gold would ever accept me as a daughter-in-law. No way. First of all, I'm a foreigner. My Korean's not that good. It's okay.
You know what? I could bag.
I got tattoos. I've been an addict, and I've been married too many
times.
No way.
I could bag a middle-aged Korean mother.
Yeah, I bet you could. Make sure she's got a single son. Hey.
Que sera.
Yeah. No, I haven't gone into that world yet of dating or, I don't know.
What do you think of the Kyle Rittenhauser not guilty on all counts decision, if you were following it at all?
Yeah, I was following it, and what I think of it is I think I need to know more, but based on what I know, I think it is incredibly tragic. And like I said earlier, I think that a 17-year-old boy who was walking the streets with an automatic or a semi-automatic rifle in that environment. Like, why? That's what I want to know. That's the crime I see. And yeah, it bothers me that people are dead, right? But like, what did we expect? Right? You can't go to war because you're not 18 yet. You can't be an adult, right? Your parents will still get sued. Usually, it used to be when you and I were young, if you were underage and got in trouble. But yet somebody let that young man walk the streets with a semi-automatic weapon. Like, why aren't we talking about that?
I'll talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, why aren't we talking about that? What's done is done.
I'll tell you.
Whether he's guilty or innocent is a big issue, right? Like, did he pull the trigger? Absolutely. Should he be punished for it? Did he have the capacity based on the way he was raised and what he was influenced by and on the internet? Should he be punished? I don't know these things.
Okay,
like, I don't know how they made these
tell
decisions.
I'll tell you what I saw, because I saw it. I saw it live.
Okay.
Okay, let me first backpedal one step. I watched the Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd trial from beginning to end, and I specifically watched the opening statements. In that opening statement is where they played the tape, that 9 minutes, famous 9 minutes and 29 seconds, whatever tape. And when I watched that tape, I watched Derek Chauvin, a cop, murder George Floyd, a restrained man, handcuffed, with Derek Chauvin's knee in his neck, slowly choking him to death. I watched a murder.
Agreed.
Okay?
I did too.
Thank you. Now, to Kyle Rittenhouse, that night, that was during the craziness of I forget what they were even fighting about, but everyone was out. It was revolution time.
QAnon.
Whatever. Okay, but what I saw, was the first thing I saw, the first thing I saw that was live. And then I'm going to tell you the second thing I saw that was analytic and with more detail, with more information. Okay, so what I saw live was this guy, Rittenhouse, running down the street. And then I saw people chasing him. And then I saw Kyle Rittenhouse trip or fall down. And then I saw somebody come at him with a skateboard trying to take off his head. And in probably instinctively, in self-defense, Rittenhouse took the guy out with his gun because the guy was trying to take out his head. It's a bang. And then I saw another guy come around with a pistol in his hand, and Rittenhouse saw that and then shot at him, and he didn't kill him. He shot him in the arm and basically disabled him, took him out the fight. And then I saw, then I don't know if I saw a third person, but I could have sworn I saw a third person, but I'm fuzzy on that. And then I saw him. I remember he's running away down the street towards safety. Okay, so what I saw of the way he acted against those people that were attacking him, I believe he was 100% justified in defending himself the way he did. Okay, now let's go. Now let me move on to afterwards, where there was a lot of analysis, a lot of. I don't remember who put this together, but somebody gathered a lot of video from a lot of sources, covering a lot more of the time from that night. So there's a video of Kyle Rittenhouse amongst a whole bunch of people standing together, and there's one particular guy with a sort of very sort of brush cut blonde hair, small guy, harassing specifically Kyle, coming after him and trying to fight him, and really, really, really in his face. That happened at some point, and then I'll go back to the live shot when I saw him running down the street. Okay. And then again, I'm going to go back to what I was talking about. So this guy is harassing Kyle, and the video that captured that actual shooting is of Kyle shooting this particular person who was harassing him earlier in the crowd. So I don't know what happened between the two of them. So I can't make a decision on what happened there because I haven't followed that part of it. I just commented on what I saw. But if there's anything connected to the shooting of the blonde-haired guy, the same one who was harassing him, who was actually targeting this guy for harassment, targeting Kyle for harassment, then obviously something happened that wasn't innocent on the part of the blonde-haired guy being the victim.
Yeah.
So I think not guilty on all counts. And also don't forget that all the charges of him having a gun and carrying it over state lines and blah, 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 all those were dropped before this trial began. So it was never those were never issues in this trial because those charges were dropped anyway. So when everybody says, sure he should have, sure he defended himself, but should he be carrying a gun, or why was he there in the first place? That's irrelevant. It's all irrelevant because those charges were dropped.
So I hear that you think it's irrelevant, and I get that. I hear that the charges were dropped, and maybe it was the right decision based on however they handled that trial, right? Mm-hmm. But as a society, when we look at these things, because we either look at this shit show as a way for us to feed our dopamine, right? This is either content, it's either works, or something, or we look at it and go, this is the downfall of our society, and we ought to look at this and figure out what's going wrong. And I can't seem to get past myself because somebody has to make a decision, right? It's going to be guilty or innocent or whatever. It's going to be one or the other. And you and I can sit and sideline this and say it should have been this or should have been that, but what's done is done, right? What's done is done. So it's the next conversation that we need to have as humans as to, why was a 17-year-old out in another state carrying this gun? Like, what went wrong? And even if something didn't go wrong, what's the expectation of what happens when people run around?
Yeah, but these types of ideas kind of have a happen of just disappearing into the ether. However, I just want to draw your attention to. You remember when I asked you for counseling?
Yeah.
Somebody in the side chat actually has come up with a solution.
Okay.
Let me give some credit where credit is due here. Hold on a minute. Somebody by the name of Cardinal Sin has come up with the solution. So I'm having an issue with somebody called Cryptomeria. And Cardinal Sin says, he says, sexual tension, it sounds like. Sidney, get a room together and wrestle it out.
I didn't even have to see it. I didn't even have to see it to know Get a Room was coming next.
So, Cryptomeria, I will whoop your ass at wrestling. I'm
gonna stand with Cryptomeria and say I don't think you're her type.
I'm a trained wrestler from the age of 10 years old. I know all the holds. I know how to counter all the holds. I've never yet been beaten in wrestling by a woman. Game on, bitch.
I'm gonna have to. Don't call her a bitch. I'm gonna have to stand with her.
Sorry, I didn't mean to call you bitch, darling.
That's not sexual tension. That has to be. You have to give permission
He
if you want to
said,
call.
argue with Cardinal Sin.
How could I argue with Cardinal Sin? I want to see the outfit. I want to see the outfit that goes along with that, man. It better be red.
Oh,
it better be red.
hilarious. So come on in, guys. Let's discuss this sexual tension. So is the sexual tension between Cryptomeria and me, or me and Cryptomeria? I think
Cryptomeria should speak for herself.
Oh, she's not here. I'm going to.
Oh, well, then why are we talking about her?
I'm going to give you my thoughts. Oh, why can't I give you my thoughts?
Of course you can. It's your room.
Okay. Well, Cryptomeria secretly desires me, but it's not such a secret because I know, and that's why I'm sharing it with you, because it's worth getting the burdens that you carry with you in your head out in the open sometimes and sharing them.
Sure. Yeah, we all need processing.
Which is
right?
why wrestling is a great idea.
Wrestling. Yeah, I gave it up for Lent. I gave wrestling up for Lent.
No, I am rusty. I will put it that way. So she has a fleeting chance.
I'll get her an oil can.
I am partial to my female wrestlers being dressed in a bikini. Please, do not try and enter the ring naked. Put on a bikini, will you?
Oh, Hail Father, Hail Mary, full of grace, God is with us.
And somebody called me a pervert. Is that true?
I've never known you to be a pervert.
That's,
I think that's.
you
I don't think that's.
That's because you don't know
analogy.
me. You don't know. It's very fair. You don't know me at all. Of course, I'm a pervert.
Okay.
Isn't everybody? In some way or another.
I suppose I have had a season of perversion in my life. I am no longer in that season.
Yeah, but
I am no longer in that season.
It's
but
a memory. It's in your head. It's still a fantasy, maybe.
I've shopped at that store before, but my credit card's been revoked. So
but
I don't.
Your fantasies can still be your perversion. You don't have to act them out.
I don't even think about that stuff. I don't even think about that stuff.
Oh, why?
This is where you can get me on the ropes. I get all nervous. I'm like, I don't want to go there.
So there are some things you don't think about that are actual reality, but you think about a lot of things that are not actual reality.
So reality is super subjective, and we all know that. Talk to any physicist.
No, it's not. It's not. The law of identity. First law of identity is A equals A, and if A is reality, then reality is reality.
We know it.
No, it is. It is what it is because we all know it the same way. So there's no discussion.
So if we were to find a quantum physicist or some kind of physicist that knew what we know and what we don't know yet, would they agree with the argument that we know all things?
We don't know all things. We know not.
Okay.
When you come to quantum, we know zero. I mean, we're at the scratching point of it.
So reality could be very, very subjective, and my reality is different.
Science will reveal. Science will reveal.
I love science.
Yeah, but science will reveal.
God created science. You know that.
God. What was the very first thing that science did?
Kill a lot of people through experimentation. I remember listening to Nephilim. I remember sitting in his rooms back in the day and listening to Evan talk about he would bring everything around to God, everything around. And I thought at the time, this is brilliant. And I used to think that it was just so insanely brilliant. Like, this is a madman is what I used to think. Yeah. But how he brought it all around. And, one of my favorite jokes is about the guy that's, in his house and the river starts to rise and it's starting to flood, right? So he goes up to the second floor and the water continues to rise. And so he's like, God's going to save me. I know God's going to save me. And so he climbs out the window and up on the roof and And he says, I know God's going to save me. And so this boat comes by, right? And says, hey, buddy, get in the boat. He says, no, thanks, man. God's going to save me. Looking at him like, what a whack job. They continue. Water gets higher and higher. And, he's still standing on the roof, but the water's, coming up to his belly button now. And another boat comes by and says, come on, buddy, get in. We'll save you. They throw him a life preserver. And, he says, no, God will save me. So finally, like he's about to go under, the water's up to his nose, a ladder comes down, and it's the helicopter above him. They yell down, grab onto the ladder, crawl up to safety. And he goes, no, God will save me. And then glug, 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 right? And he drowns. So then he finds himself at the pearly gates, as one would, right? And he's just dripping. And the gates open. He walks in there, and he's just like mad. And there's God in all his glory sitting there as God would. And he goes, what was that about? Why didn't you save me? God sits back and kind of takes that power position and says, son, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. What more do you want?
Well, that man was a good, he won the Darwin Awards. That's for sure.
Yeah. Help yourself. Like it's God. You've got a responsibility down here on Earth. Like, handle your shit, God says.
I don't understand why he just wouldn't have got in the first boat and said, hey, look, God sent us a boat. What is he expecting?
Exactly. Well, because people have been irresponsible with religion and with scripture and have decided that it's going to be some kind of that you don't get to think for yourself, right?
Those are the kind of
you can't critically think.
Yes, as long as they don't breed, we're good.
But they do. But they do. Yeah, critical thinking is important. You can't, if that's the other reason that I work for the organization I work for, because I got to walk in and say, look, I don't know what's going on, but something's going on, and I don't really know a whole lot about this, but I sure love helping people, and I'd like to learn more. And so I do. And they said, okay. So, you know what? That's the way it goes.
Absolutely. I find it, in order for me to build a happier life, I have to have a very, very small footprint.
Right.
In other words,
yep.
My house is my castle, and I live in my castle.
Yeah.
When I go out for anything, walk my dog, I grow groceries, get fresh air, whatever, you're on the streets of danger. I'm on the streets. I mean, I'm not, but to me, it's the way I look at it, like in the old medieval times, right?
Sure.
Yeah, because people are the same. People are still fucking cunts. No, I've the history that I've read from antiquity, well, not so much antiquity, but certainly through the Catholic era, how people are such the kind of brutality that one human can mete out to another is shocking, is horrifying, and I always plan for the worst. So around every corner is a killer.
If you're afraid of killers, you'll find one around.
No, I'm ready to take one and kill the guy back. I'm really ready. Come at me, bro. But I don't want to feel that way.
Yeah, you don't want to feel that way.
No.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Like there are times when I observe things, right? Like I now have developed the skill of suspending conclusion and not jumping to conclusion and sitting back and hearing a whole argument and being able to kind of, chew it up and listen to it and try to figure out what I agree with and what I don't agree with and not react viscerally anymore. And so in that time when I'm, when I hear religious whatever, there are times when I get that thought in my head that goes, hashtag that ain't me, right? And I kind of take that's kind of like God communicating with me, whatever it is, like hashtag that ain't me, hashtag that ain't God. Like, why would you throw out an omnipotent being, whatever it is, even if it's just energy, right? That flows through all of us. Like, how many times did I have to be doing CPR on a dead body that I understood that there's something that's not there anymore that was there when they were alive. It's the same thing for all of us. Nobody gets out of this, any other way. Everybody takes their last breath exactly the same way. They don't take another one. And that, when you stand in a concert hall or a basketball stadium or arena, right? And it's that connection with people. It's the thing that we want so much, is to be connected. And we love to be in groups, and we love to either riot together or worship together or sing together.
Why is it that I'm so different? That everything that you've mentioned
Because someone's hurt you. Because someone's hurt you. But I'm not that. Look, I have the same problems with going out. Like, agoraphobia is real for me. Like, I didn't leave my house for a long time, right? That's why I was on the internet. And so we go sideways, man. People hurt us. We are traumatized people.
Hold on. What's being hurt got to do with going out? How can staying home be equated with being hurt and not wanting to go out? I don't get it. I don't see how I've been hurt, and that's why I stay home. I just like to stay home because I remember when I was younger, I just wanted to stay home and read books.
Yep.
And that's what I've been an introvert, forever.
Yeah, sure. But some of it's introversion, but
what part of that is being hurt?
Well, I'm not going to expose stories, right? But all we have to do is look at our childhood, right, and decide that your introversion, if it were, and I don't know what your story is. Well, I do, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to bring all of it out. If you take an introverted child and you give them a very toxic mother, father, sibling, whatever, auntie or uncle, if they're living in, blended families or just, multi-family houses, and they're subjected to that, like, they grow up with problems. We see this. This is what the whole ACE score is about, right? Childhood trauma.
This is where I don't fit in. Again, my ACE score is high, very high. And
Mine too.
I am the kind of kid that I was the typical kid that I was would have been the kind of kid who would, run away from home and start causing problems and challenging authority and just being on the streets, that kind of future, right? That's exactly how I should have reacted based on my relationships with my parents. But I didn't. I'd stay at home and I'd just be in my bedroom, close the door, and read books and just escape.
Right.
That's it. I mean.
So then, but there's a bigger conversation that goes along with that, right? Like, the ACE score is just a higher. It just says that you have a higher incident or a higher chance of going sideways. There's exceptions to every rule. There are people who've been brought up in,
I am an
right.
exception.
So if you're the exception, you're the exception, but we can't base a world off the exception when the majority of people who have childhood trauma are fitting the bill.
Well, why can't we acknowledge the exception and maybe try and understand why there's an exception and maybe the exception is something that we want to make the rule?
Okay, so we can't make anything a rule that's a natural proclivity, and there's too many variables in the nature versus nurture argument, right? Because that's what this whole thing boils down to, is the nature versus nurture. Like, you could take X child with whatever personality type and how many different variations of personality types there are, and put it with any measure of different types of parenting, household structure, all of that stuff. Like, there's so many variables that I don't know that it's duplicatable, right? And if it was, how could one thing be right for all people when we are at our essence individuals and unique but not unique, right? Yeah, it's difficult, right? But people don't want to have these conversations because they don't have the dopamine. Unless I call you a complete asshole and say, "Hey, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong, Sidney. You don't know what you're talking about. And you're hurting me." Right? Like that's what I mean. Everybody's brain's just like hyped up, right? Oh, she's
don't
gonna
give
get
away
crazy now.
private phone talk.
Sorry.
So,
But
yeah, you're right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not exciting talk. I get that. I learned that after being in
It
enough
is
of these.
exciting talk. It's educational, and
Sure.
it's reality YouTube.
Well, it's time for us to start having the other side of the argument, right? It's time for us to expand the argument. People who want to debate. It's like when we talked with Khalil and whoever else the other night. It was like, you know,
James Henry.
Yeah, no, not James Henry. The other guy that was Mike, or I don't remember what his name was. He sounded real cute. I can't remember what his name was.
I don't remember.
Anyways, you know, I mean that kind of argument's pretty clear to me. And he even said it. He goes, "Look, it's works, man. Like I want to know." He wants the key to the castle. He wants to be the guy on top that knows what is what, because these are the personalities of people that are done being walked on in society. They're done being fed lies. They're done with all the bullshit that they've put up with. And now humanity says, I want to know. I think now that we know enough about history, we've got enough recorded history, and now we're connected on the internet. So now everything is happening all at one time. People are going to be even more and more hungry for the answer, right? And that's that tree of knowledge thing, right? Like, be careful. Careful how much you want to know in this world.
What? I want to know everything.
All right. Let me know how that works out for you.
Sure, but so far everything I know is what I know.
Me too.
It's working out great so far.
You only know what you know. Hey, have you ever watched the Jordan Peterson religious his psychology, or what do they call it? Psychological evaluations of the Bible?
No.
Dude, they are amazing.
No, the Bible
They're
is
amazing.
The Bible's fiction.
That's not what I said. I didn't ask you if it's real or not. Like
No,
that's not the art. That wasn't the conversation.
I don't.
The conversation was a professor, a Canadian, Canadian professor of psychology, gives an interpretation, a psychological interpretation of the books of Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel and all the rest of these things. I thought it was very interesting. I'm not saying whether it's true or not.
Yay, Canada.
Well, yeah, right. Like, so he's taking a look at these things as how we look at. Just the whole lecture that he did was just amazing.
He comes across to me as kind of a fake ass Jordan Peterson.
Really?
Yeah.
This is a man who is like Dostoevsky, like damaged. Like he's like, this man feels human suffering, right? He's been learning about fascism and psychology, human psychology throughout history. Talk about whether you know, like if you don't learn your history, we're destined to repeat it, and we're doing that right now to possibly the peril of our own society. Like it's really easy. People remember when we used to sit in the Hangouts, Google Hangouts all the time, and people are having arguments, and we're sitting in front of computers that have access to Google.
Yeah.
And nobody would look shit up.
Now everybody screams at everybody else. They make a big claim.
Citation, please. Yeah. Citation,
please. Look
it
up. Just look it up.
Look it up. Nope. Because that's not exciting. Dopamine. Everybody's feral. We're entering the feral stage of humanity.
Maybe we should all commit our lives to making sure that Israel survives strong.
Well, see, and you know, as a fellow Jew, I there's part of me that was like, okay, I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no, because if I look out for all of humanity and try to be the best human I can be as a good example, then maybe we can just stop having borders and stop having, why can't we just be good to each other and be okay with, hey, you were born here, wunderbar, right? You were born here, neato,
well,
but
hold on a second. You don't know the great historical story of how
I do.
how beautiful humanity can be to another humanity, how beautiful humans can be to other humans. It's
well,
very. It's the
could
most.
be,
I have a
but I don't know
story.
that we have been.
Yes. Oh,
Could be.
I have a story for you. You are
All
going to
right.
have tears rolling down your eyes because of the compassion and the beauty of one human to another. So, you know
One
that
human helping another without
I'm
parallel.
talking about the whole society. It's like a revolution. This is how powerful humans, when they unite, can be. Okay, so you know that back in the early 1930s, when in Germany, when Hitler won his chancellorship.
Who?
Adolf Hitler. There was a guy called Adolf Hitler. He won the chancellorship of Germany in 1933.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, he was a rabid anti-Jew. Okay, to the point where he wanted to exterminate Jews. Okay, so the first step, what he did was he made Jews wear a yellow star, a patch on the outside of their clothing to identify them as Jews. Okay?
I seem to remember the story.
Right, but because it was, it was humiliating and a degrading thing to do, the Catholic community, the whole Catholic community in all of Germany and Austria, and also the Protestants in all of Germany and Austria, said, they came out as one unit and said, how can you do that to another human being, degrade them and make them wear yellow stars? So you know what? Fuck you, Adolf Hitler. We're all of us Catholics and all of us Protestants, we are also going to wear yellow stars just in solidarity and to unite with our Jewish brothers and sisters who are being oppressed by the German government of Adolf Hitler and being made to wear yellow stars. So all the Protestants and all the Catholics, as well as all the Jews, were walking around with yellow stars on their clothing out in public, and no one could tell the difference who was who. And because of that, it shows you how united we can be against tyranny.
Well, I agree. That's why I live the way I do now.
So okay, I got a question. Yeah. I know the story is really just fantasy, but tell me something. Why didn't that happen?
Because people we're human, and that's part of our experience, right? Like we either learn from it or we don't.
But I know we're in the time of lots of Jesus, lots of hundreds of years of Jesus. Okay, and we've got a Europe that's pretty much we've got countries that are essentially one Christian they're all Christian, but they're either Catholic or Reformed or Protestant or Anglican or whatever. There's different. They're all Jesus. Every one of them is love. Is Jesus is love. So why didn't the Protestant Catholic communities of Germany and Austria put those damn yellow stars and patches on their clothing to say, fuck you, Hitler, we're not going to let you do this?
Right. So here's how I see it. And now I could be wrong, but the way I see it is that, for a long time, nobody actually read the Bible. I mean, regular people didn't read it, right? It was read to them and it was interpreted by others. And we know that people are inherently dishonest, right? People who want power, if you've got personality disorders, if you've been, disenfranchised or been, if you've got a bad disposition, you'll use whatever you can to get the leg up because everybody wants power, right? So just because you're standing in a garage, it doesn't make you a car. Because just because the Catholic Church said they were, for God or all about Jesus doesn't mean they are, because they're known by what they do.
Okay,
So if
so
they're not doing what Jesus talked about, then or any religion, like I'm not mad at anybody if they've got a religion that has loving and caring behind it, right? If that's what it's supposed to be, whatever your belief system is, like let's just take religion out of it, whatever your belief system is, if it's good for you, good for others, and it continues to give in a positive manner, let's do it. If I call evil something else, it's still evil.
I understand
That's
that.
the thing, is we're making God pay, or we're making our relationship with a higher power pay. We're cutting off our own nose to spite our face, right? Because I don't want to be a Christian, or I don't want to be a Jew. I don't want to be Muslim. I don't want to be whatever. And I'm now not going to have a relationship with a higher power that may or may not exist, right? And that's for you to decide, because other people have fucked that up.
If the
that's
Pope,
the sad part.
If the Pope in the 30s had sent out a message, had felt that what the Germans were doing was sort of Jesus wouldn't do such a thing. Jesus frowns upon it. That is not Jesus. This is really not a nice. This is not the way you treat humans. If the Pope really felt that, and he had his bishops and priests, whatever, start to tell their flocks that what Hitler's doing is not a good thing, it might have been picked up by the Protestants, and also spread that this is not a good thing. And if the popes and the leaders of the Reformed, of the Protestants, had suggested that everybody wear yellow patches on their clothing, and so to identify with the oppression that Adolf Hitler is imposing upon the Jews, if that had been done, perhaps a lot of terror, a lot of barbarity would have been eliminated and would have been prevented.
Right, which is why leadership, strong, honest leadership, is so important, right? Because the common man, first of all, none of us know anything about the reality of the world. I mean, most people, we go off of whatever we've learned, and most of us don't have a high education. And like, this is why it's so funny that people who can't even figure out their taxes are deciding what an mRNA vaccine will do. Like, we don't know shit. We can't even take care of our own selves in public half the time, yet we're going to tell everybody what vaccines work and what don't. I don't get it. Like, I spent all that time in medicine, and I still am like, you know what? I hear a lot of stuff, but the day I think I'm an expert in that, like, why even go to a doctor anymore? Like, if you're so great, why do we even have medical degrees anymore? Now, if every common man can tell another common man whether a vaccine works or not, like, I remember when we were in those rooms with the anti-vaxxers too, and I thought, oh, this is kitschy or whatever. And now look what's happened, right?
All of those arguments I haven't been following up on that. What's going on?
Well, it's just the whole anti-vaxxer thing is taken off the same way that the whole flat earther thing did as well. But getting back to your point, Sidney, is that we always seek leaders, right? And this is the irresponsibility of leaders, of humans, right? Yet we know not to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So if there is some supreme energy out there, whatever it is, whatever it is, why do we continue to throw it out when we already understand the nature of humans? They lie, they cheat, they steal, they kill, they're happy, they're sad, they're good, they're like,
why would it be any different than with our leaders? If they're humans, they do the same things.
Right.
They lie, they cheat, they steal.
So that's my question. So why throw out God? Why throw out the idea of God? like, I don't care about all the rest of the stuff that people argue about. Like, I don't have to, none of that has to be necessarily true. Because look at this. Let me give you this whole thing. I live as if God exists, right? The God of my understanding, right? It may not be the God of your understanding. It may not be the God of the Bible, the God of my understanding. And so I like the writings of Jesus Christ. That's my choice, right? To live by those instructions. Now, if as a non-believer, you were to feed, clothe, house, and heal your brothers and sisters, right? That's a good thing, right? If you're a believer and you feed, clothe, house, and heal your brothers and sisters, theoretically, if there is a God that has that kind of consciousness to even give a shit, that would please that entity, right? So it doesn't matter whether we believe or whether we don't believe in something that we can't prove. How are we caring for one another, especially those who suffer the most in our society? That's what I want to know. And I'm just not willing to throw away whatever is happening for me, whatever this feeling that I have, whatever experience I'm having, that I'm not forcing on anybody else, right? It's just my experience. I've got my experience, strength, and hope. This is my story. Take it or leave it.
So you don't know whether your actions of feeding and clothing and being kind, etc., to everybody in your life, you don't know that those actions are pleasing a God, or if it's you're just doing it because you're a compassionate person.
It's the right thing to do.
And it's the right thing to do. Most of what everybody does is because it's the right thing to do. But I think
the God of my understanding, Sidney, tells me not to fear.
Yeah,
the God of my understanding says that's not me.
Yeah, okay, but I think that you underestimating yourself by putting all those achievements, heaping them on the shoulders of God when they're your achievements.
Oh, who said that I don't take credit? Who said that? That's a narrative from somebody else. So here's the thing. I get up every morning.
Let me answer your question. You said that you don't take credit because you have God as the reason for everything, so you're giving all the credit to God.
That's not what I said. I've never said that because I know that I get told that a lot. That's the Christian mantra. All glory goes to God. Now it's just automatic that if God does exist, and I'm choosing to live under this instruction, that I wouldn't be able to do. But although here's the thing, even as a non-believer, I was good to people. I was kind to people. I remember Jack, the teacher, telling me, "You're too kind. You're too nice to be an atheist," right? I remember some of these other guys going, "Oh, you're going to be a Christian."
Jack, the teacher, that Christian guy, I remember him.
Yeah.
Oh, what a shitty, stupid thing to say. You're too nice to be an atheist.
Right. But he understood that because that's what was being demonstrated, right?
That's crazy. What does that even mean?
So regardless of whether, I'm not saying all glory doesn't go to God, right? That's something that God and I will have a conversation about, that I'm thankful. But when I get up in the morning, I metaphorically connect with my higher power, and my higher power says, not audibly, I don't hear things, says, I got it up here. And I say, okay, I got it down here. And that's how I start my day, right? I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I do the traditional prayer stuff. But that's how I start my day. But I have a responsibility to not be a hypocrite. I have a responsibility to not push my belief systems on somebody else, that to demonstrate what a personal responsibility with a God of my understanding looks like. And that I meet people where they're at. Like all of my clients, anybody that I serve, it's like, I'm going to meet you where you're at. I don't get to stand in judgment, of you.
I'm still having a little hard time understanding how you acknowledge that your achievements could have been reached without God.
I don't know that. I don't have a way to prove that. Because here's the thing. I spent how many years? 55 years, 54 years with no God, and I ran my life into the ground. Right? And then I got myself out of it without a belief in God, right? I got myself to rehab. But if you accept the Christian doctrine that God had his hand in it, right? Whether I saw it or not is irrelevant, right? So now that I consider it a partnership, you know, whatever it is. But again, if you're thinking about my God with your beliefs of what God is or is not,
well, if I ever were to argue for God, I'd argue for the Jewish God.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I don't understand.
Why do you think
I don't
care
understand.
about the devil? We don't even have hell.
I don't understand how Jesus comes into. If you're arguing for the Jewish God, Jesus is a laughing stock. It's irrelevant.
Well,
it's a silly add-on.
Right. So I understand that.
Especially if you're saying that you have your God with you all the time.
Well, why wouldn't you if he's a part of you?
Exactly.
Right.
So,
why wouldn't
so the Jewish God is not the same as the Christian God.
I don't know that. I don't know that that's just a label. That I mean, like I don't know, and it doesn't matter to me whether the specifics of the Torah, the Quran, or the Bible are totally accurate. Like, there's no way for me to prove it, and I've yet to see people argue in a way or come to an agreement. So
yeah, we all agree that it's not accurate.
Whatever. Yeah, even I agree that it's not accurate, right? So that doesn't matter. So, but why am I going to let that stop me from caring and loving?
The books are just books; they're not God.
I never thought that the Bible was God.
So what? So why even God should not even have a book. I don't get it. I don't understand why there would be a book. What God should just be a set of axioms.
Well, okay, so we have to understand that through whatever feeling that people have had, spiritual feelings, whatever they've learned throughout the world, because I don't think I'm the only one having a spiritual experience. Like, and I can't count it. Maybe it is all drugs. I don't know. I mean, I don't use them anymore. I don't even take medication anymore. Like, I only did for like the first 6 months just to get my brain right. But I don't have any kind of weird, like, I don't see visions or anything like that. I'm not psychic. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in aliens. Like, I'm pretty down to earth. So it's not as if I don't need all those things. What I need is the feelings that I have, that I connect, that I call God, right?
Mm-hmm.
I connect with a God of my understanding.
But what is this connection? I want to understand.
I love
this
the
connection.
teachings. I love the words, the red letters that Jesus Christ talks about. So, and
how many
and
are
story.
there? How many words are there? How many red letter sentences are there?
I am not that kind of girl. I don't know, and it doesn't matter. And Jesus
What do
doesn't.
you mean
care.
don't know?
Doesn't matter. It's not essential.
It's not. I'm not asking you whether it matters. I'm asking you how many there are. Like, if it were in a book, how many pages would there be?
No, I have no clue.
So
No clue.
how do you know about the red letter?
Well, because I'm reading. Like, I just read John, the book of John, right? And it, I liked it.
I thought you said you just read the red letters,
which was mostly in John.
John is the last. Do you know that John is the last gospel?
Probably, yeah, because Jesus was an add-on, right?
No, John is John is not part of the synoptic gospels.
Oh, well, I don't even know. I don't make it a secret that I don't know everything about organized religion, because I'm not real interested in it. Because
I'm not talking about organized religion. I'm talking about the organization of your scriptures.
Well, they could be organized however they want. There's also apparently a lot of books that have been left out. So what about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene?
The thing is, here's the thing. Once the way all these scriptures were propagated, they were copied.
Yeah.
Okay, but once they became irrelevant, in other words, once one group decides that, like, say, Arianism was heresy, even though Arianism was probably a better choice than orthodoxy, they stop being copied, right? So you don't have as much. You don't have as much history.
Yeah.
Too bad.
So you know
which is too bad.
when people bring these things up, though, I ask them, how does this information help me feed and clothe and house, and heal humanity? How is this helping me?
Well, you could start with me. You feed and help and clothe me. What else? What I need? I need feeding. I need housing. I need clothing. What else you offering?
That's all I have.
Okay.
That's all I have. I don't have much these days, right? I live a very simple life.
I'll take that.
Much.
All right. Okay.
I
Cool.
don't have riches anymore.
See, now you've got your good deeds of your life all taken care of for the rest of your life.
I don't look at them as good deeds, though. It's just this is how I like to act in the world. It's the person I want to be. It makes me.
Where's the rebel that I once knew?
Well, I'm a rebel enough to say on the internet while I work for a Christian organization that I don't know or don't care about all of these different things, right? That God is the God of my understanding is all I'm interested in, and I believe that I have faith in the words of Jesus Christ, right? That's it.
But I don't understand. You said you
and
know.
whether I stay that way or not is between me and God.
Right. I'm just trying to find out what these words of Jesus Christ are. That you.
Well, like I told you that, like John 14:12 is what spoke to me, and that.
So is that a red
time.
letter? Is that a red letter verse?
I think so. John 14:12, and that is, I say unto you, whoever believes in me will do the works that I do, and will do greater ones than these, because I'm going home to the Father. He's kind of like passing the torch. He's passing the torch to us, right? And whatever you ask in my name, I will do.
Yeah, but you see,
so that the Father may be glorified. I have
some bad news for you.
What?
It's not your fault. Okay, I'm not blaming you.
Okay.
But I don't think that message is to you because you are a female.
Oh, I don't care about that stuff. I don't care about that stuff.
Oh, really?
I've had my as a young EMT, like hazing does not bother me. I'm not one of those feminists. I don't even think I am a feminist, but I'm not a feminist.
You said you weren't sure if you had a vagina.
Yeah, it's been so long since.
Well, maybe you need
calling me a tramp is almost a compliment.
You need a second.
You think I'm capable of that?
If you need a second opinion, why don't you just go next door to your neighbor? And
I live in an old convent. I don't think my neighbors.
You live in a convent? Do you wear like the? Do you wear like the nuns garb and everything?
I don't know. Do I?
The black dress and that funny scarfy thing.
No, not at all.
No.
Now this house was a convent. It's really old, and so it's not a convent anymore, obviously, because there's no nuns here, except for the ghost that the girls
I was just going to say the ghost
they see all the time. And you know what I go, stop it. They go, Miss Carla, we saw it, and I'm like, no, you didn't see any ghost. I said, let me tell you something. If a nun is sentenced to travel the world or to walk the earth in her death, right? A woman who's given her life to God and the bride of Christ, right? If she can't get into heaven, we're all screwed. I said, so that's not a ghost.
Yeah. So you actually believe there's a heaven?
I don't care. I hope
no,
that
no,
like
no,
I.
no,
So here's the thing. I can't admit to that. I can't say whether I believe or whether I don't. It's not part of my belief system. I don't care, and I can't think of anything more cruel. If the Bible were true, right? Let's just talk about this for a second. If the Bible were true, accurate, right? If it were accurate, like when I hear people talk about, I can't wait to go home to the Father, and I'm waiting for revelation, which I think is so. Even my pastors think that's ridiculous. It's like, why would I want to go up to heaven and look over the clouds, if that's what it is, and watch everybody else suffer? Like, that would not.
Well, you get to watch all the starving people slowly dying on earth.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
I can think of nothing more horrible. And besides, I'm going to have 4 ex-husbands up there. No, thank you. No, thank you.
So I want to know what it was that you said to these ex-husbands.
What do you mean what I said?
That caused them to leave.
What makes you think they were the ones that left? Which is funny, you're not the first to assume that. Only one left me. I left the other 3. And then the third one that left me came back when he was married to another woman and said, hey, want to fool around? I said, go fuck yourself.
What was so outrageous about the fooling around offer?
Well, first of all, he was married again, and he left me when I was, when I was sick. Like, really?
Oh, okay. Yes. No.
Right?
Now
And
I'm
then
recalling. Yes. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, okay. Sure.
But I don't want to talk about that part of your life. I'm not really. It's not really. It's not really
It's
all
not
that interesting. Number one, and it's.
Yeah, it's not dopamine.
And if
worthy,
it's not interesting to me, who knows your whole life? Just think about all the people who are watching or listening.
Yeah, they don't care. I don't even know why you've had me in here this long, because you know I'm a room killer. I'm a room killer.
Well, you know what? You've doubled the
'Cause I'm
size of the
boring.
room since you came in.
Get out. Is that so?
Yes.
It's not me, Sidney. It's all you, babe. It's all you. I take no credit for that.
Well, if you say so.
Oh, but you know what? I do have to go, though.
It's okay. This has been a very good interlude. I will be returning to the previously scheduled program, which was the Darth Dawkins video, and then whatever I had scheduled for afterwards.
I will be watching.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I'm going to play the videos that I need to go and make coffee and sort of get rejuvenated a little bit. So when I'm in a room like this, it's difficult to do that. So it's quite timely that you have to go.
Right? Actually, it's because my food just got delivered, so
Excellent. Okay, I love you very much. Thank you for dropping by.
Too, sweetheart.
And I hope we'll see you. Okay, I hope to see you next time.
Yep. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Hey, how cool was that, huh? How cool was that? All right, now I'm going to see if I can find where the hell everything else here is. And see if we can get back. Let's see if we can get back to it. Okay, I'll start running it. And you'll start listening.
It's a logical contradiction. Okay? He kept on trying to change the subject early on to Christianity.
Yes,
See, this is the tactic. I explained to him, either all facts necessitate referencing God, or no facts necessitate referencing God. Why? Because in a God world, God being creator and ultimate and institutor of all possibility, all temporal facts would necessarily derive from God and necessitate referencing God. But if there is one fact that does not necessitate referencing God, then God cannot logically coexist in that world. He finally admitted it. I said, good. So by implication, your position is God does not and cannot exist. And he goes, that's not a position I hold to. He repeated that about 5 times, and my head wanted to explode like John F. Kennedy. How do you deal with such deceitfulness?
I have a question.
What did he just say? His head. Hold on. I don't want to say it. I want this. Okay.
How do you deal with such deceitfulness? Is anybody getting the picture here? Is anybody getting the picture here of how pathologically deceptive, okay, and evasive all of these atheists are?
Hold on a second here, dude. I didn't hear him say it. The second time. I have to go back to it. Sorry, I'm going to be. I am going to be. OCD about this. I want to hear it. Well, it's all the way at the end. Yeah. Sorry, but I want to hear him say it again.
With such deceitfulness. Is
I have a
anybody
question.
getting the picture here? Is anybody getting the picture here of how pathologically deceptive, okay?
No, I
and
missed it
invasive
again.
how
Come on.
God. All due to in God being work, because say work in the right. If not, it exists is God. He producer of all possibility.
Try from there.
All temporal facts would necessarily derive from God and necessitate referencing God. But if there is one fact that does not necessitate referencing God, then God cannot logically coexist in that world. He finally admitted it. I said, good. So by implication, your position is God does not and cannot exist. And he goes, that's not a position I hold to. He repeated that about 5 times, and my head wanted to explode, like John F. Kennedy.
Did you hear that? Like John F. Kennedy. What a cunt. What an absolute cunt. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go into the making of a narcissist, which is the kind of thing the part I'm looking forward to the most out of this Darth Dawkins segment. I kind of have to set it up there a little bit so that it doesn't look so bad. Hold on, give me 1 moment. Just give me 1 moment. Please. 1 moment, please. Oops. Okay, I think I got it here. All right. What should we... There we go. I think this will work fine.
Mr. Vaknin, you're known as the world's foremost authority on narcissistic personality disorder, but you have achievements in many other areas and many other disciplines. I just found out casually whilst we were making a coffee that you have a PhD in philosophy. Was that your first PhD in philosophy?
Yes, yeah. My first PhD in philosophy. Before that, I was technically a professor of physics in Israel, in the Technion. I started my studies at the university at age 9, so I had a bit of a head start.
You were studying in university at age 9?
Yeah, I'm not so proud of it. I think it was an idiotic decision by people who panicked. When my IQ was diagnosed as very high, I started like all gifted children. I was a troublemaker at school. I gave my principal a heart attack, and then I sent him flowers and gave him a second heart attack, which was not very conducive towards his attitude towards me. I know why after that he hated me and so on. So they sent me as a troublemaker because I was organizing kids and making a mess and so on. Sent me as a troublemaker. The suspicion was that I'm retarded. Seriously, they thought I'm mentally retarded, and they sent me to be tested. And it was off the charts, and it was so off the charts that a group of professors in Tel Aviv University and in Haifa decided that there is absolutely no point for me to continue at school.
Your IQ was off the charts?
Yes.
And what age were you when you were IQ tested?
My IQ was tested 3 times.
Right.
Once when I was 9, and then again when I was 25, and then again 35.
And what kind of a result were you getting between 9 and
9? I was 180. Strangely, it's going up. Usually as you age, IQ goes down. But I think because I constantly exercise my brain, I mean, I read and write and analyze and well over 10 hours a day. I do nothing else but this.
Yeah.
I think it's simply, you know, like a muscle, it builds up.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was 180, 185, 190. No, sorry, 180, 190, 185.
Okay. Which, in terms of IQ, ranks you globally.
There are 6 people with 190.
Right.
7 people.
In the world.
In the whole world.
So, at age 8, they're looking at this kid and they go, highest IQ in Israel, I presume, at that time.
Among the highest IQs in the world, yes, absolutely.
And their decision was no more school.
There was a bit of panic.
Right.
There were no protocols what to do with gifted children. There were no institutions.
Yeah.
There was no conveyor belt, if you wish. You know, gifted children put in, genius comes out. They didn't know what to do. There was at that time a movement, a global movement, of finding gifted children, creating special frameworks for them in institutions. Alice Miller wrote the book about the gifted child and the family. And so there was all this brouhaha about gifted children, later called geniuses. But they didn't know what to do. So they opted for the worst conceivable solution as we know today. We know that this should never be done.
Right.
They took me out of my peer group. They catapulted me to the end of the primary school because technically they had to do that. But starting at age 9, I was forced to go to university.
Do you think that contributed to the mental health issues, the formation of a personality disorder?
I think it made me a social misfit. And I was not only detached from my peer group, I was also detached from, for example, from the company of girls. I mean, everyone around me was 20 plus. In Israel, you serve 3 years in the army. So you start university at the age of 21.
Right.
Everyone around me was 20 plus.
Yeah.
21, 25, 22.
Yeah.
Most women in this group did not find me interesting. I don't know why. I thought I was cute. I mean, no dates, no nothing, horrible.
Nothing.
So, and I was 9 already. You know, truly formed men. So seriously, I mean, I didn't develop the necessary social skills to interact with peers.
So even though you had very high IQ, you're still a 9-year-old.
IQ is a single parameter, and by the way, extremely limited, because IQ tests in the West are geared towards measuring specific capabilities, mainly analytic capabilities, but not, for example, synthetic, not creative capabilities. So you can be a genius at the piano, or genius painter, and still your IQ would be 60. So it's it doesn't mean much. It means that you would be good probably with language, with mathematics, so on. And indeed, I excelled in physics and so on. But they were totally at a loss. At the age of 9, I started to study at university, and they allowed me, for example, at the age of 12, to go to medical school. I mean, I witnessed pathology classes. I don't want you to throw up because you've had breakfast, presumably, but pathology classes are really, really ugly things.
This is cutting corpses? And
Yes, including female corpses, which must have had some effect on me.
Yes.
And I've witnessed that at the age of 12.
And there were no adults present that said maybe this isn't great for us.
Right, not a single one of these professors, I want to name names, I mean, but they were like the elite of the psychological profession in Israel. I was tested and examined by everyone. I was a circus freak. I was an absolute circus freak. I was moved from place to place, from Tel Aviv to Haifa to Beersheba to, you know, everywhere. Everyone wanted to see me. Everyone wanted to talk to me. I think I was a celebrity before the age of celebrities. Don't forget that I'm as old as some of the dinosaurs. And, well, I've met some of them personally. I even gave therapy to one, committed suicide. And
so it worked.
It worked. Can you see any dinosaurs around? No. So, but I'm really, you know, a bit on the antiquated side. And so when I was diagnosed as a so-called genius, it was all very, very unclear. So all the professors of psychology wanted to. So I was a celebrity before the age of celebrities.
And you were being moved around a lot.
Yeah.
Which, from my...
and all the media and government ministers were coming to meet me in my hometown. And then they made my hometown into a city. And
so forgive the cheap psychoanalysis, but that means that that was normalized for you to be a celebrity, to be talking to ministers, people in position of power, professors, the elites of countries, and to move a lot.
Move a lot.
And you continued that.
The entirety of my life was shaped at that stage. First of all, entitlement.
Right.
Start with entitlement. I'm a genius. You owe me. I mean, I should be ahead of the queue. I should be out of the line. I jump. I don't finish anything gradually. Like school is 8 years, year after year after year. No, I mean, I start school, I go to university. I go to university. I go to medical school. I mean, everything was desultory, itinerant, peripatetic. Everything was very chaotic and with jumps.
Hugely traumatic for a 12-year-old.
I wouldn't say traumatic, but shaping. It shaped me. And of course, I absolutely, to this very day, lack the most basic skills, socially and with women. Most basic skills. It's not that I don't know to charm women. I don't know what to do with them afterwards. No, but I mean, the most basic skills. Women keep telling me that I don't emanate, I don't give a vibe of a man.
Right.
I mean, they're charmed, they're intrigued, they get close, and then they are absolutely repelled. And there's something creepy about you. You don't give a vibe of a man. It's sometimes you give a vibe of a child, and sometimes you give a vibe of a machine, but never of a man.
Yeah.
And I think psychologically I froze in time. I think at that age, 9, I stopped developing. And the reason is that we all react to reinforcements. My intellectual side was constantly reinforced. The more I impressed the adults, the more I came up with equations and solutions. I mean, the more important people I met, the more I was on television, the more I was. So my intellectual side was constantly reinforced, constantly rewarded.
Yes.
And so I said, what the hell? Why do I need to develop the other parts of me? I mean, I'll develop this thing. I mean, it works.
It's sufficient.
It's sufficient. It gets me places. It gets things done. And my whole family was privileged as a consequence, and so on. And so I regarded it as an adaptive life strategy to emphasize my brain and my mind, and to absolutely neglect everything else. And you know, when your other sides are not reinforced, and there is a dominant side which constantly yields excellent results and gratifying results, emotionally gratifying, you say, okay, then let's focus on this. So all the rest is totally neglected. To this very day, I'm not an adult. I don't drive. I don't have a driving license. I don't have children. I don't really have a family. I mean, I'm married, but if you ask my wife, I'm not a man. I'm not a man. I know that because numerous women all over the world told me that. Different cultures, different societies, different periods. I don't know how to be anything but a brain in a carbon-based jar. My jar is carbon-based, which I deeply regret. But that's all I am. I'm a brain. And all my interactions are geared towards impressing the living hell out of my interlocutor.
And also, you were as a child genius. It's a diminishing asset because a 9-year-old genius is an incredible thing. So is a 17-year-old genius. 27-year-old.
Not to mention 57-year-old genius.
Not so much then.
You have to work much harder.
Much harder.
Escalation. You remember? Remember our previous talk?
Yes.
And I said this. In order to remain unique or to be noticed or to be seen even, you need to escalate all the time.
Yes.
So I'm intellectually escalating.
Right.
I never deviate from what I believe to be the truth and so on, but I work extremely hard to be original and creative and to come up with these shocking insights and to connect things and so on. It's still working. I have 20 million views on YouTube, so it seems to be working to some extent. It's still working. I still participate in many documentaries and so on, so still I get the attention that I need.
Yes.
But it requires a lot of work.
And the raw fascination of a 12-year-old with an IQ of 180. People will fly from all over the world to come and just spend 5 minutes with you. That can never last. There does seem to be a consistent pattern with that personality disorder when there is a sense of it's leaving.
Yes.
Do more, as you write. You said
escalation.
Yeah.
And I think the ultimate form of escalation is psychopathic narcissism.
Right.
I think, in other words, our need for attention had become such owing to population explosion, owing to new media. Our need has become such that the majority of narcissists will inevitably end up as psychopathic narcissists if they're capable of it.
Right.
Intellectually and otherwise. I think that's the next phase, next evolutionary phase of narcissism, I think, is this. And that is a serious danger to the species. Because the species can tolerate a single psychopathic narcissist at the head of the administration. The species can tolerate 10,000 psychopathic narcissists spread across a 3 million workforce, 3 million strong workforce. In dilution, if they are diluted, if they are like sparse and far between, they may even, as Kevin Dutton suggests, may have even some positive. But if all narcissists become psychopaths, trust me, we're in extremely serious trouble.
Yeah.
And if society becomes narcissistic, society will become psychopathic.
Yes.
So I fully believe there is an absolute total equivalency between collectives and individuals.
Yes.
I think collectives go through the same developmental phases.
Yes.
They have the same personality disorders or other mental health disorders. I think the DSM, written in the plural pronouns, can fully apply to collectives.
You think you could take that and just apply it to a nation state, to a culture?
When I wrote an article called Narcissistic Collectives and so on. So what I did there, I took the DSM-4 set of criteria and I just changed the pronoun. And immediately you can see that it perfectly fits Nazi Germany.
Yes.
I mean, not a word needs to be changed. Not a word needs to be changed. Collectives, because we discussed it yesterday, we have a kind of hive mind. We tap into each other. We, in very subtle ways, adapt to each other in order to prevent conflict and in order to enhance collaboration. It's a survival strategy. If there's a tiger, better agree with you. You know? Otherwise, the tiger will eat you and then it'll eat me. I don't care about you, but you know. So we better be okay. So,
as you said before, altruism is this thing that if it's not cooperative and it's not reciprocal, it kind of becomes pointless unless you have.
And inefficient.
It's inefficient.
It consumes resources.
Yes.
So and in families, usually this is the type of altruism. So so I think that we have this hive mind, and I think because society is becoming more and more narcissistic. There will be a tipping point, of course, when society will become psychopathic. Collectives which are exposed to abuse become narcissistic. We know that.
Yes.
The Jews are extremely narcissistic. That's an anti-Semitic statement by a Jew.
Yes.
They're extremely narcissistic because they've been exposed to repeated abuse and escalating abuse over 2,000 years.
Well, you can earn a persecution complex, can't you?
Yes, you can develop paranoid, persecutory delusions or persecutory perceptions. And usually narcissistic defenses are provoked by abuse. Abuse is intolerable if it goes beyond a certain stage or lasts for long. So you then have two options. You can react with trauma. So we have complex PTSD. You can react with trauma, or you can react by pretending that you are not you, by divorcing yourself. The locus of the pain, the residence of the pain is in yourself. If you divorce yourself, you divorce the pain. But how do you divorce yourself? Well, you say, I'm not this, I'm this. And this, the external this, is what I call, and Kernberg called, false self. That's the false self. The false self is a decoy. It is a firewall. Remember yesterday I told you that what I think has happened with smartphones and so on is that they made us more narcissistic, and in this sense we are using our smartphone as a firewall. It firewalls us.
Yes.
We become this unit that is separated from the hostile viruses and malware of the external world with our smartphone. So, and we also hold it in a defensive posture. We hold it like this.
Yes.
I mean,
and as soon as I'm anxious or bored, I pull it out.
Yes.
So that I don't have to look at people.
Exactly. It's a go-away thing. It's a go-away gesture. We could have designed, everything can be designed differently. We could have designed smartphones differently.
Yes.
We could have designed smartphones, I don't know, horizontally instead of vertically.
Yes.
Horizontally, it's much more difficult to block yourself. I mean,
Yes.
imagine the smartphone was like this.
Yeah.
It's much more difficult to hold it like this. But we didn't.
Yeah.
We designed it vertically.
Yes.
So that it's much easier to hold it and
Yeah.
shield yourself.
Yes.
It's utterly defensive posture.
It should be a Spartan shield, and it should be on the inside of the
Yes.
shield.
And it's coming, smartphones, and, smartwatches, and so on.
Yeah.
Google
The glasses, yeah.
and so on. So we are withdrawing.
Yes.
We are withdrawing into narcissistic bubbles. It's a process of atomization. But I think whole collectives are becoming more narcissistic owing to abuse. So Jews reacted like that. Russians have reacted to centuries and then decades of
Do you think
communist abuse.
the Serbs, the same thing?
Serbs are narcissistic. Russians are narcissistic.
Yeah.
Jews are narcissistic. Many Muslims are becoming
Hugely
narcissistic
narcissistic.
because they perceive colonialism and its aftermath
Yeah.
as forms of abuse.
Yeah.
Abuse yields narcissism. Americans elected Donald Trump in big part because they felt abused by globalization and
I think we're seeing the beginnings of a narcissistic response in the UK. This feeling of
Maybe
being
that.
put upon by immigration and all the rest of it. The reaction to that is a narcissistic, infantile defense.
Yes.
Where everything is reduced to these stupid, ultra simple, totally unnuanced simplifications of reality, so that something must be done. Something must be done.
The beginning of narcissism is splitting.
Yeah.
Me good, you bad.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the beginning of narcissism.
Yes.
An external enemy, an external threat. So migrants, the Jews, or whatever. I mean, so it's the beginning of narcissism. I think ultimately most societies will become narcissistic because the threats are real.
Yes.
So most societies, but what I don't know is if whole societies and collectives will be pushed beyond the point of psychopathy. Again, if you have a single psychopath on the block, Adolf Hitler, you can defeat him with another psychopath, maybe Stalin. But what do you do if everyone is a psychopath? What do you do if all human societies and cultures and countries and nations and collectives are psychopathic, not narcissistic, psychopathic?
So it has to be a zombie apocalypse.
It will be what Thomas Hobbes called Leviathan. It will be the end of humanity as we know it. It will be an absolute fight for survival. It's not true that psychopaths cannot make coalitions. They can make self-interested coalitions. They can even collaborate. And many psychopaths are creative, and they end up as pillars of a community and in positions like chief executive officers and so on. Baby, I can hear proved that 3.5% of all chief executive officers in North America are psychopaths. They have they have a result of higher than 30 on the PCLR, which is extreme psychopath.
Yeah.
Serial killers have this.
Yes.
3.5% of all chief executive officers in North America.
Yeah.
And they are chief executive officers. So they are capable of productive work, creative work, collaboration, coalition building. It's not true that they are consensus building. It's not true that antisocial means asocial. People make this mistake a lot.
Yeah.
They think antisocial means asocial. Not so at all. But many psychopaths are also in prison.
Yeah.
Many psychopaths are serial killers. I mean, we will have these deviances and perversions and dangers, and they will be at a much heightened level. Much heightened level.
In your case, was there, aside from the traumatic and destabilizing events of being a child prodigy, was there in your home life, was there traumatic circumstances that you think contributed to the formation?
I had the unfortunate confluence of co-occurrence of on the outside being idolized, literally idolized. I was treated as an absolute national treasure. I mean, there were articles, he's the biggest genius since Maimonides. The physicists were comparing me to Einstein and saying that I exceeded him and all this kind of thing. I mean, I was a kid. You must understand, this is absolutely mind-warping.
Yeah.
So I had the very unfortunate accident in life that on the outside I had been utterly idealized and idolized with no mitigation. But at home I was exposed to life-threatening physical abuse and verbal and psychological abuse, which bordered on a concentration camp, which was as arbitrary as any SS guard, and as life-threatening, by the way.
So extremely sadistic, extremely psychopathic.
Psychotic, I would even say.
Psychotic.
Psychotic. It was a result of psychosis, now I understand.
Rage, these were rage-fueled attacks.
Well, when your mother takes your head and pushes it into the sharp corner of an oven and obliterating your skull, it's a bit of a traumatic experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Or when she burrows her fingers into your arm and takes out the veins and shows them to you. It's also a bit of a traumatic experience. So I was exposed to this for 12 years.
Yeah.
At the very same time, idolized on the outside. Now, this is what you would call simultaneous intermittent reinforcement, where you are getting utterly mixed signals as to your self-worth. Are you a bad object? Are you worthy of such degradation and life-threatening sadism? I mean, is your life worthless, actually? You know, on the one hand, and then who to believe? To believe the professors who say that I'm a unique creation.
You're an angel, you're a demon, it's heaven, it's hell.
It creates... I think the source of trauma is never certainty. I think the source of trauma is when you get conflicting messages. If you as a child grow up in a family where your father tells you that you are no good, worthless, bad object, and your mother tells you the same, and your aunt, and your grandfather, and your teachers, and I don't know who, you may grow up to be a criminal. Distinct possibility. But you will have no trauma, no mental problems. You will be sure.
You wouldn't have a personality disorder.
Yes, you will be sure who you are.
You're just a scumbag.
Yeah, I'm a scumbag, and that's it. I was born a scumbag. I am a scumbag. I'll always be a scumbag. I mean, identity coherence and cohesion is crucial.
Yeah.
It is when we get conflicting messages, sometimes from society. Take, for example, incest. A father sleeps with his daughter. Imagine that they do it on an isolated island where there's no one else.
Yeah.
Pitcairn, where it happened. The mutineers of the Bounty disembarked on Pitcairn Island and established a tradition of incest, institutionalized incest.
I did not know that.
Right. You're not well versed with your perversions.
No,
you should take
I
care
should
of
do
that.
better.
Yeah. So, but imagine incest. Imagine father and daughter, and the daughter is born on the island. She's never been exposed to anything. And they're having sex. Do you think she will be conflicted or traumatized? Of course not.
That's normal.
That's it.
That's life, yeah.
That's life. That's reality.
Yeah.
When would she be traumatized? When another shipwreck will bring a psychiatrist to the island. The psychiatrist will tell her, do you know what's going on here? It's horrible. Your father is a fucking pervert. Incest is unsupportable. It's going to damage you. I mean, it is the conflict between what society tells you about incest and what your father is telling you about incest. It is this conflict that creates the trauma. There is no trauma without conflict, which would explain perfectly why a group of people are exposed to the very same experience and not all of them are traumatized.
Yes.
Depends crucially on context and conflict, inner conflict. So I was conflicted from the very beginning. I not only got a message that I'm a bad object and maybe not so bad object. I got a message that I'm a bad, utterly decrepit, decadent, decomposing bad object.
Yes.
And utterly perfect, brilliant, godlike, angelic object.
Yes.
It is this total discrepancy that created my narcissism. And here I want to say something. I want to say two things about narcissism that I've never seen said by others. I'm trying to redefine narcissism. I'm developing a new treatment modality called cold therapy, dubbed cold therapy. Of course, I would call it cold therapy. I'm a psychopath. Why would I call it warm therapy?
It's not going to be kind therapy, is it?
No way. It's cold and horrible. So, but when I'm developing, one of the things I have to do in order to get this therapy to work, and with 40 odd people, it worked perfectly. People diagnosed with NPD. So one of the things I had to do, I had to redefine narcissism. And I did it in several ways. First of all, I decided, and I think I'm in the position to express an opinion, shall we put it this way. I decided that this whole thing of narcissism is a regression, narcissism is a defense mechanism, narcissism is a personality disorder, this whole thing is utterly mistaken. But I mean utterly, hopelessly, disastrously mistaken. This is why no therapy works with narcissism. And in which sense is it mistaken? First of all, I regard narcissism as a post-traumatic condition. If it is a post-traumatic condition, there's hope, because we know how to treat trauma.
Yes.
We do not know how to treat personality disorders, but we know very well how to treat trauma. If we redefine narcissism, pathological narcissism, we say, wait a minute, it's not a personality. Personality is okay. We don't need to work with the personality. The personality is there and it's okay. It's healthy, everything is okay. But it went through trauma. It's a post-traumatic condition. We know that people who went through trauma are much less empathic, for example. It's classic reaction to trauma.
It's a survival response.
Yes, I mean, you withdraw. I mean, you think only about yourself, your circumstances and so on. So maybe lack of empathy in narcissism is simply post-traumatic reaction. So that's the first thing. Second thing I said, narcissists are treated as adults. A narcissist goes to a cognitive behavioral therapist. The cognitive behavioral says, what are your negative automatic thoughts? You should absolutely get rid of them. What the hell? You're talking to a 9-year-old.
Yeah, 9-year-old has no idea
what automatic thoughts? What on earth are you doing?
Yeah.
No wonder it's not working. It's a child.
Yeah.
So I regard narcissism as an arrested development. Disorder of development, developmental disorder, coupled with attachment disorder at an early age.
Yeah.
So I'm using techniques in cold therapy borrowed from child psychology.
Okay.
Not a hint of adult psychology in any element of cold therapy.
Okay.
That's the second thing. But coming back to the point that you made, one of the insights that I suggested is that narcissism is a form of multiple personality disorder, or more precisely, dissociative identity disorder. I suggested that the early trauma, and Walker said it, but I think I said it 15 years before him, that spoiling and pampering are forms of abuse and abandonment.
Yes.
Actually, this exact sentence is in my book, so I was a bit miffed. So, following the trauma, I think what happens is the personality splits. Elements of the personality, which are very primitive and infantile, like grandiosity, omnipotence, omniscience, like perfection and brilliance, like splitting, and so on. These elements coalesce and are projected, thrown out, and become a false self.
Yes.
And I show clear equivalence, or I clearly map the inner structure of a typical patient with multiple personality disorder and the typical structure of a narcissist.
Because it has an equivalent.
Yes, very powerful equivalent. A narcissist is someone can be described as someone with a multiple personality disorder, but with only 2 personalities, while someone with classic multiple personality has 3 or 4. But the false self would be the host personality. What we call host personality in dissociative identity disorder, that would be the false self in the narcissist.
Okay.
And the true self of the narcissist would be the child in the because every multiple personality, every person with dissociative identity disorder has a child in pain.
Yes.
A hurting child. And a host. And the host protects the child in dissociative identity disorder.
Okay.
In multiple personality. There's a host personality, and the host personality interfaces with the world.
Yes.
So it has what we call ego functions.
Yeah.
It interfaces with reality and so
Doing
on.
the job of an ego, but in an odd, split way.
Yes, it's actually an ego. It's kind of projected ego. So, and the host protects the child, defends the child against pain and so on. All the pain goes to the host. It's exactly what false self is doing.
Yeah.
It's exactly the role of a false self.
Yeah.
So why not say that narcissism is a dissociative identity disorder with 2 personalities? Simple.
Yeah.
Why is that important? It's important because we are extremely successful at integrating personalities in dissociative identity disorder. Extremely. If you just think of narcissism in a different way, it is suddenly totally curable.
Yes.
If you think of it as post-traumatic condition, we know how to treat it. Dissociative identity disorder, we know how to treat it. Child with arrested development and attachment disorder, like reactive attachment disorder, we know how to treat it. If you think about it in these ways, we can cure narcissism. That's the news, the breaking news.
Yeah.
The reason we were not able to cure narcissism is because we misconstrued it. And we were trying to treat something else.
Wow. That was pretty decent, wasn't it? Okay, looking at the clock and taking reality into consideration, 3.5 hours of streaming is pretty much enough, I think, for me. If somebody jumps in quickly, I don't mind, and we can certainly have a chat. But the timer's on for 5 minutes, and that's just about as much time as I'm going to wait in order to get the chat room going, which I don't know if it's if anyone joins. That's fine. I do have things to do, so I'm just doing this as a courtesy to you, dear viewer, and to you alone, dear viewer. Alright, so, I didn't want that. What I was also thinking of doing was, while the clock is counting down, listen to this a bit.